ready to queue up for the. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to a very tired episode of No Excuses on BTWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Aristil,
Arian,
and Volatile, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry after a very long and exhausting week. If you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can send us no, I already said that part. You can join us in the Discord channel, which you can get to by clicking on the link provided in the show description underneath the show archive on YouTube. And we got Castrum again.
Yes, we did.
Why is it always Castrum?
because they hear, they listen, they know you wanted Praetorium, so they gave you. That's how this works.
Everybody always wants Praetorium, though.
It's because it's less painful.
Nobody wants Castrum, because Castrum isn't worth your bang for your buck.
Yeah, because you've got to pay attention.
Yes.
At least to steer in the right direction.
There is a couple of mechanics that you actually have to do.
No, there isn't.
Well, you say that,
somebody
but
has to do them.
I've been in some very, very long fights against Livia because people weren't doing the mechanics.
Pick the damn cannons. So, on the stream today, I'm playing a bit of Endzone, which is an irritatingly named game now because it's Endzone, a world apart, prosperity. I have the DLC for it.
Like, Under Night in Birth EX late.
Yeah, that sort of
levels
thing.
Of.
Game developers, please. Cut this crap out. It's a crime against the English language. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
At least in French Bread's case, it's because they don't speak English.
Yeah, they've got an
Japanese.
excuse. So, what this game basically is for those who've played Banished, it's post-apocalyptic Banished. For those who have not, it's post-apocalyptic colony survival, which is the genre Banished kind of kicked off. Which isn't really bad for someone's a single guy's college project. You know you've done something right for a college thesis or college project when you kick off an entirely new subgenre of game. So it's the sort of game where you've got your little town to build. I'm going to find a dumb name. Let's see. Ditchford. There we go. Yeah, you have a town full of people, and you need to basically not let them die of starvation or, in this case, radiation or death or bandits or whatever. I believe, and there's a few new mechanics. I haven't played around with this game too much. What sets it apart is you have places you can extend your minions out to explore, like bring back technology and stuff you can then incorporate into your own tech tree, such as like here's some leftover buildings and whatnot. Thankfully, unlike Banished, this game's AI does not have its underpants on its head. Not that I've seen so far. So, we shall see how this goes, but I'm expecting everybody to die in a nuclear puddle before too long.
Well, it wouldn't be post-apocalyptic game if you didn't have that option.
Yeah. It seems to be the thing with a lot of these post-apocalyptic games now is the world has suffered insert unspecified disaster here. Usually there's radiation, but there's no real mention of anything radiation-y happening.
Just taken for granted that radiation must be present in the aftermath of an apocalypse.
Yeah, regardless of how the apocalypse happened, radiation will happen.
It's probably like everybody's got this idea that after the apocalypse the world is radioactive, but since nobody who making these games lived through the Cold War, nobody actually remembers why.
Yeah. So, yeah, the apocalypse has happened, and the apocalypse will be green and glowy for reasons.
Because people watch The Simpsons, and so they think that radioactive things glow green.
If something is green and glowy and ominous looking, I wouldn't probably touch it. At least they've got that going for it.
I did see a picture was going viral on my Twitter feed during this week, it was just a picture of a cross section of a barrel of radioactive waste with the commentary that the person posting bets that liberals think that it's full of glowing green slime.
Probably
because
yellow dust, isn't it?
It's normally just dirt.
Yeah.
It's normally just radioactive dirt surrounded by concrete, and usually whatever like hazmat gear is due for disposal will be packed in there as well. That's all that's in them. They're just barrels that are full of dirt surrounded by concrete. There's nothing in there that glows.
No. I mean, that's a shame, though, because, I mean, it makes it at least cooler.
Well, I mean, if you light up a piece of uranium under UV light, it does glow.
Yeah, but a lot of things glow under UV.
Yeah. Well, it glows green.
It does.
Does that help? It does glow green.
I guess that's probably where it comes from.
One of the standard things that the science teacher would show the class in school.
All we got was burning magnesium in our class.
The interesting thing was that they had this chunk of uranium that was used for this demonstration, but it was kept in a empty bread bag in an ice cream container.
I mean,
on a shelf in the teacher's office at head height.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's not going to harm anything being stored like that as long as nobody eats it, but really? A little bit more bacon? Anyway.
Well, my high school had a bunch of illegal stuff as well.
Actually,
because it had been made illegal while we already had it. Like, for instance, you're not allowed to have potassium metal anymore in a school. It's considered too hazardous, but we had tons of it.
I remember that. My school actually had the same thing, a big old tub full of potassium nitrate.
No, not potassium nitrate, potassium metal. Potassium nitrate is just a regular chemical used for all kinds of things. Potassium metal, on the other hand, explodes on contact with water.
Yeah, that was the stuff then. Yeah, it's been that long. You're asking me to remember back to school, and I don't want to remember back to school.
It has to be stored in a jar under heavy oil.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's the sort of game we're dealing with here. Is a random post-apocalyptic something. You do need to deal with radiation, like you've got tap on. There you go. You got these unspecified green glowy bits. Is that they disappear when it rains? Sometimes. Rain apparently moves radiation around. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, it could be radioactive dust clouds that are being blown about by the weather.
Yes, but unless it's not raining, they're static, so... Yeah, wonky science aside, yeah, interesting game so far. I haven't hit the big end game phases yet, where you've got your civilization starting to really spread out. But so far I've maybe played 1 or 2 games and people have not died immediately. That's something. But yeah, if it's anything like any other game in this genre, fortunes can just change completely in an instant. Yeah. Anywho, weeks. Jump into my week, and it's just been work. The holiday is over. Not that we really had much of a holiday. Right back into it. On the plus side, though, we've decided we're going to adjust all the prices for our services upwards. So yay for pay rise, but on the other hand, we're going to have arguments with people who haven't paid attention.
And also,
Been
it's
there.
not really a pay rise because inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Lots of customers not happy.
Yeah,
At first. And then they just kind of were like, well, everybody's doing it, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 10 years since we've upped the prices, so come on.
In my industry, I think everybody's playing chicken to see who can be the last to raise prices.
Okay. Who can go the longest without doing it?
Yeah, because they'll get the customers.
Yeah.
And then they'll get locked into long-term contracts.
Yeah. So, you don't want to be that guy, really, do you?
You don't really want to, but because it's going to hurt later. But in the short term, it could harm your competitors.
Yeah, short-term gains, but long-term, it's going to cause you.
Well, it's not really short-term gains. It's short-term losses and mid-term losses and long-term losses, but extremely long-term possible gains because you're preventing your competitors from building reputation in the duration because they won't have those customers.
But yeah, that's on that end of things, and beyond that, work is just same old song and dance. As for nerdery stuff, I've caught up on Jujutsu Kaisen, sat down and kind of finished that off. It continues to be the embodiment of tonal whiplash, that anime. But I had a good time with it. It has its serious themes and kind of its serious moments, but the fact that it doesn't hesitate to just suddenly take a right turn into Stupid Town is just different. It means it doesn't develop into angst, I guess. Have you guys watched it?
Yes, I've watched the whole thing as it's been released so far. It does have a different feel to it, generally speaking, but it has all the signs that it's eventually just going to end up on the same route. To be honest,
honestly, yeah, it's just going to
be that all. You can see those storm clouds on the horizon, so it feels different now, but they haven't proven that it's not going to end up on the same road. Which I mean, I don't particularly dislike it. Like I like shonen trash, so I don't mind if it ends up being fairly normal. But it is sort of a missed opportunity to do something a bit more interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is going to end up, at least if they continue down the route they're on, it's going to just be, generic shonen number whatever. But yeah, for the time being, they've got some cool themes going. They've got some really good fight choreography actually happening. Sometimes. Other times it's kind of. Yeah, there's plenty of room for them to go, but I'm not really going into it expecting a big, deep storyline. I'm just there for some shonen trash and to watch people flippity-flop around fighting demons.
It's got Sumo Bro.
It does have Sumo Bro. I still have no idea what to make of him. It also has Gorilla Panda.
What is your type of woman?
Yeah, there's an awful lot of bromance precipitating out of there.
It's one-directional bromance, though.
No, the protag totally gets into it later.
I can never remember the protag's name.
He tends to get swept into other people's pace a lot.
A lot. It's what got him into the situation in the first place. But yeah, it's a good time. Other stuff, really. The only game I've really played. Well, I've actually had a little bit of Final Fantasy time this week. The server queues look like they're starting to settle down a little bit.
For now.
Until the patch happens, I guess. So I was able to get in and do the nearing the end of the Garlemald story. I did the big set piece event. Yeah, my character should not be used for evil because he just comes across as smug. I mean, it's not entirely inappropriate for the situation, but still. I guess that's what I get for having a cat face.
That was a really good little mission.
It is. It took me a moment to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, but yeah, it was good once I got the hang of it.
I had a hell of a time. I kept getting lost, like, repeatedly.
Yeah, the fact that you have to kind of double back doesn't help.
I have an absolutely miserable sense of direction at the best of times, but the biggest enemy in that entire sequence is the camera, which gets caught on every piece of rubble that you can imagine.
Yes, it does. And this is an environment where everything is grey-brown, and you need to be stealthy and try to sneak around some grey-brown enemies. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very cool moment in the story. Because, hang on, things have just gotten real. Here's a callback to something that happened earlier as well, so that was something nice on top of that. I wasn't actually expecting that.
I think the real operative thing about that scene is it sort of shows what you look like to other people. Like what an absolute monster the Warrior of Light is. When placed in the context of suddenly you're not the Warrior of Light and you're trying to see what it's like trying to make your way across a battlefield compared to what the Warrior of Light would do, which would be to blend everybody up like whipped cream as you go through.
Yeah. Instead, you're just generic soldier number whatever. And
so now you can sort of see why the common man of Garlemald views you the same way that a primal would be viewed in Eorzea. Because that's the sort of power you're just chucking about willy-nilly, and as far as they're concerned, Eorzeans are savage force of nature. So,
yeah, it's a very cool.
Really underlines that power gap.
Yeah, Warrior of Light is an absolute beast when viewed that way. You tend not to see that because you are the Warrior of Light. And the other times you play as another character, you're playing as one of the Scions, or, Ian. Who are, they're not quite the same power level, but they're up there. They're not bad. Yeah. The other things I did is I went and got a couple of the Heavenswood. Went and got Bismarck, and then I went and got the most pompous mount of all. Honestly, riding, what's his name? Ravana, his mount. I can't help but grin after hearing his theme song, because it is just the most ridiculous thing.
Oh yeah, they've got boss mount music, don't they? I have that turned off because I like to listen to the zone music.
Yeah, but the Shiva one's fun because you're running around and every now and again the game just screams Oblivion. But yeah, Ravana's it's slow and it's the pompous baritone chant. It's great. It's probably just as well as no Moggle. No water. Oh dear.
Your water is infected.
My water, well, it's radioactive, apparently.
Oh no, did somebody pull the mobs?
Yes. Yes.
No, I think we're okay.
Aw.
So I saw one of those Iron Giants leaving a packet looked like.
Oh, somebody about to die in Netflix roulette.
The searchlight. I'll go get it.
Sad.
I would hope not. I would sincerely hope not, because Castrum is not that difficult.
No, it's rather telling if somebody actually dies in Castrum.
Well, people die in Castrum, but it's usually because somebody was dumb during the big pull, like right before the cerulean pipes.
Yep. Don't do a dumb and you'll be fine.
The most common death is the tank because the healers just assumed that they didn't need to do anything because they usually don't. So you only need one healer to keep up with the damage, and that healer need not do very much. However, you need at least one healer doing something for those big pulls.
Yeah, if all your healers are having a nap, then someone's going to die.
Well, it's more common that the healers will both assume the other one is doing it.
Yeah. That never ends well.
Gotta get your... Oh, we had a red mage die to something.
Haha. The other game I've played a good chunk of is Risk of Rain 2, which is a third-person shooter roguelike.
They've got co-op, right?
It does. I have no idea how co-op actually works, so I haven't tried any of it. It's a lot of fun. The loop is basically you're dumped onto a world space. There's only about 10 different, which lets them hide secrets and which is very cool. You run around, you kill enemies to get money, you use money to open chests and get items which you use to kill enemies. When you think you're strong enough, you run to the portal and activate it to fight ye boss, or potentially bosses, depending on where you're at, and move on. The big catch is that the longer you take, the more the difficulty ramps up. It's just on a fixed timer. And it does not stop at any point until it reaches maximum difficulty. Which I should note, it starts off at easy, medium, hard, very hard, insane, nightmare, impossible. And then it just starts laughing at you, and that's it. The difficulty bar just laughs at you maniacally and just keeps going. It's great. But it's a very easy game just to pick up and play. You only start with 2 characters available, which is your Commando and Huntress. Huntress is a kind of a bursty, very fast-moving bow and arrow wielder. The Commando has dual pistols who run around going pew. I've unlocked about half the characters so far. A lot of them, like, you'll get the engineer just by playing the game. You do 30 levels. A couple of others you need to do special things in the game to actually unlock. And the one I'm aiming for next is the Captain, which is actually just beat the final boss. I haven't done that yet. I've gotten up to the final boss once or twice, but I keep getting sidetracked into various bonus stages at the end of the final world. And when you do that, you get looped back to the start. With all your items, but with all the difficulties still cranked all the way up. So it is, honestly, it's a lot of fun. The sort of game you can just pick up and play for an hour and just enjoy yourself immensely. It's also the sort of game that occasionally will just decide, you know what, screw you, and give you crap items and then let you die horribly. As is the nature of these roguelikes. One of these days we'll actually have to play that multiplayer.
Yeah, I think you got it for me for Christmas.
I got it for both of you because it was the only game on Steam I could find that would let me do it.
Steam, why you do this to us all the time?
Yeah, like there was other games I tried to give you guys. The Steam kept saying no.
Yeah,
Aristeele, are you trying to ruin this? Are you ruining everything?
Please say yes.
No, she's just playing with me right now.
Yeah, but somebody had lured her over to the... Somebody lured her over to the cannons. And I'm pretty sure it was you.
I moved her away when I realized she was on me. She might have come up to me.
But yeah. Honestly, now that I think about it, there's really not a whole lot to say about the game. Just a lot of stuff you just unlock as you play the game just by doing these things. Each class has a bunch of different unlockable secondary abilities you can swap in and out. And a lot of them you'll get just by playing the game. But a few of them require you to go actually out of your way. Yeah, again, just a very fun, very simple game. That is honestly about all I've done for my week.
I need you to have more than this.
That's it. That's all it's been. I'm just stretching and trying to think of something else, but I can't. I haven't even played any more Nocturne yet. Need to get back and finish that. The Amala Network lose.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't want to.
That's honestly what stops me from playing it, is that place is just a nightmare.
Yeah.
The stuff of literal nightmares for me.
I made a big jump forward on last week's show and actually started getting somewhere. I still haven't decided which route I'm going to go because I'm trying to figure out who's representing what route at this point. Yeah, I don't want to... I know the Order route is going with the guy who kicked off the whole event in the first place. He just wants a world of stillness. That sounds complete. Yeah. Anywho, that's it. I'm stretched. That's all I can do.
Oh boy.
Yeah, like I said, it's not been a big week. Might throw some risk of rain up in the second half of the game, of the show. We'll see what happens. It's not this. I love playing that game. It is just good, dumb fun when you want to switch off your brain and go pew with things for a while. But you kind of need to pay attention, otherwise you die.
Yeah, I remember the last time we tried to play a game that required us paying attention on the show.
It never ends. Like, even though
Right.
I tend to main the engineer now, because basically some of the ridiculous things you can do various items on him. Dumb fun. A lot of it involves dropping a turret and running away. But yeah.
I'm just reminded of our attempts to play Red Alert 3 for a two-man show one time.
Yes, suddenly, battle schoolgirls. With jetpacks.
Well, it was more.
I
We're
thought it was
sitting there.
bears.
Yeah, it's bears.
There's also bears. Yeah.
But yeah, we were so stuck in paying attention to what we were doing and trying to remember what all the units did that we
We didn't put together much of a show, no.
yeah, there was a whole lot of dead air.
Come to think
Dead air,
of it, was Red Alert 2 in that remaster pack? Red Alert 3, I should say? Let's see.
No. It only went up to 2. 3 is still its own standalone game. I'm 99% sure of that.
It's a shame.
It's-
Oh, here it is. So, yeah, it'd be nice, because then we could actually have modern multiplayer infrastructure instead of the duct tape and string system that's...
Oh, that's right. We had to go get the pseudo LAN thing to connect through because it's not supported anymore by EA.
Nope. Let me see. Red Alert, and Conquer, and Red Alert. Yeah. Notice the remaster actually doesn't list the actual games that are in it on its store page. That is dumb.
That's EA.
That is EA. I mean, it's a great product. Why? You just had to put one EA touch in it. This is why we can't have nice things.
They can't help themselves.
Not help them.
They got an EA all over it.
Vol, what have you been doing?
Nothing.
Yay!
Like literally nothing. I don't have work. Nothing outside of work, pretty much. It's just, it's been an absolutely freaking brutal week at work. I've done very little else. It was one of those weeks where you get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat, you go to bed, you wake up, you go back to work, and that's all. Being an adult sucks.
Do not want to adult
being
anymore.
a responsible, non-neat, non-bum individual is too hard. No
Want
wonder
to
so many
contribute to
people are
society.
bums. So I haven't
Yes.
really done anything. I haven't had the energy, much less the time. But yeah, so I mean, I've tried to still at least jam some recreation in, but there just hasn't been much time. I polished off the end of the Enmate rerun on FGO. Sort of looking forward with a great deal of trepidation to the Amazon's event that's starting very shortly, probably this week, I should say. Because it's the second time that they're using the mechanic from Setsubun, which is one of the only events that just completely beat me. But I gave up. I couldn't do it
Oh, nice.
because it was too demanding. I didn't have the time, and the way things are right now, I probably won't have the time at least at this time either. Although they've calibrated it to make it a little bit more doable. So the main mechanic for Setsubun and for Amazons is that, to sum it up in abstract terms, servants go on cooldown after you use them. So you have to climb a tower typically, and so each level will be a battle, each floor will be a battle. And as you climb up the tower, every 5th or 10th, I can't remember, floor in the tower is a boss level. So basically, you've got to assemble teams that are functional to get you through the trash, so that you can conserve your best units for bosses, because everybody will go on cooldown as they get used.
How long of a cool?
Enough that for a mobile gameplay session you won't be able to use them again. So we're talking a matter of like an hour or 2 hours or something, I think.
Yep. So either build multiple teams or progress extremely slowly.
There are upgrades. Well, you don't have time to progress extremely slowly because there's usually like 100 floors and events are limited time.
Yeah.
Setsubin was particularly short as well, given the format and the unfamiliarity everybody had with it. So a lot of people weren't very successful, and I was one of those people. I think some of the only laws and gold foos that I've missed since I started playing it seriously. It's just I didn't have the time to attend to it. It wasn't even poor planning that held me back, as I just did not have the physical time to get strong enough units out, because I hadn't devoted a huge amount of time to just farming EXP, and you really need to build up your stable of servants. Even if you're not using them, you need all of those 1, 2, 3, and 4 stars that you get much use out of. You need them available so that you can get through the trash without having to burn any of your heavy hitters. But yeah, this one's got various things that you can get over the course of the event, like like the event currency can be used to purchase upgrades that will speed up. It'll create like speed up cooldown slots in your cooldown thing. Because last time there was a hot spring at the bottom of the tower, and you could select servants to go into the hot spring, which would halve their cooldown time, and that sort of thing. But yeah, so it's an interesting mechanic, but it's a very challenging one to deal with if you don't have very many servants leveled up. I have a lot more leveled up now than I did last time, simply because there's more water under the bridge, as it were. But as a mechanic, it's very, very newbie unfriendly compared to most, because if you have a small stable, you're simply going to get wrecked. But the Grail reward, as usual, is within reach for most people. So the back end of the tower is usually not many critical missable rewards in there. Like the Grail is more accessible, but the back end will contain things like laws and gold foos usually. So people who really want to get everything need to do that stuff. But if you just want the Grail to say, oh well, I've completed the event, you can usually manage to do it within the event time. But it's a very time sensitive event. I'm not really a huge fan of the format, and they don't use it very often. Like once every couple of years, we see an event like this. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also not looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it because it beat me last time, and I want to take a run at it again this time. Although this time since its time has passed, it'll be much harder in terms of the actual battles. But I kind of want to overcome it this time because I failed so badly last time. But I also don't want to do it because it's a particularly obtuse format to put a mobile game into. So it's one of those things that keeps you looking at the clock sort of thing, and I just don't have time for that with my work commitments. It's rough. Anyway, that's that. In FF, I haven't had much time to play anything. I've had time to sort of log on, do a couple Beast Tribe quests to get a bit of XP, and then log off again. And that's pretty much it. I've started leveling Scholar because I found the healing mechanics were a little bit more intuitive to me than White Mage's, which I like. I like All White Mage, and you can put up big numbers, and that's cool and all. But the Scholar, I find, gives me a bit more. I feel like I'm more in control most of the time, because where the White Mage can simply patch up holes in health bars better than anybody else in theory, although that's not true right now since they're undertuned for the current expansion. The Scholar, rather than doing that, is basically controls the rate at which health bars empty out.
Yeah.
So I feel more in control and less agitated and less panicky when I'm playing a healer, because the White Mage is sort of like you're on the hair trigger for the moment that something goes wrong, and then you've got to slap a big band-aid over the hole.
Yeah.
Whereas the Scholar sets up the conditions under which the healing will be done and then does the healing.
Yeah. see a big attack coming in, you can get ahead of it, put up a couple of big bubbles, mitigate the effects of it.
It's not even that. It's not even as something as reactive as that. It's that you're setting up the conditions under which that attack is going to occur, even without seeing that it's going to happen. Like you're not so much seeing, oh well, there's a big attack coming, I need to put a bubble up. I mean, you will be doing that for like big phase change nukes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the regular sort of play that you've got, you're thinking about, okay, so I've got this particular amount of trickle output is happening all the time, and I'm going to be adjusting by placing shields in various places. This one, as it receives the trickle of health that's constantly going out, their health bar is going to refill because it's going to be the shield that's being chunked in the meantime, and so on. So like, oh well, I expect that I'm going to have this amount of time between critical events that affect the whole group, so I'll give them shields at this point, so over the course of that time their health will be going up while the shield goes down, that type of thing. So I kind of find that easier to compute than the white mage, where you've got a lot of power but you basically have to use prognostication in order to apply it efficiently. It's it's everything is sort of reactive on the scale of very tightly controlled long-term planning or absolute reaction, whereas I feel like there are certain, like, you can't recover emergencies as quickly with the scholar, I feel, but you're very much less likely to get into emergencies because you can buffer the emergency before it happens in a more effective way with mid-term planning. Like, it all becomes much of a muchness when it comes to the end game, where everything is hyper-optimized for particularly casting this spell here and this spell there and so on and so forth. But in conventional gameplay, it's easier for me to do because I don't have so many situations where I'm just looking at my cast bar and praying it gets to the end before the tank falls over.
Yep.
Because I will, by looking at the tank's health bar, 10 seconds before that event, I know the rate at which that health bar is going to be emptying out, and that when I look back at it, the state it's likely to be in. There's not as much, oh well, I mean, it's going to take a hit, how much will the health bar empty at this point? There's a lot of maintenance is taken out of your hands by Embrace as well, which I presume is the way that that Cardia works for sages, where there's just a certain amount of healing that they don't concern themselves with because it will be taking place normally, as opposed to when you are focusing your attention, and you focus your attention to remediate certain situations and prepare for others. Whereas the white mage is like, you can't really do anything about what damage is coming in, really. You just you've got supreme power to fix holes in the leaky boat, but you don't really have anything to stop holes being bored in the bottom. So yeah, I suppose the reason why I like the scholar is that I'm assuming that the group is going to be a clown fiesta. As Ari and I discovered today, clown fiestas still exist in abundance, particularly in Tarot Paradigm's Reach.
Yeah, they do.
That was a thing. That was definitely a thing.
That hurt a lot.
Went bad, yo?
I have set a new record for the number of res spells cast during a dungeon.
Oh,
it was
okay.
It was impressive in a way. Like during the first boss, people were just falling over left and right like they do in Pugs, where the bosses actually have the ability to do decent damage.
Yep.
The second boss, everybody forgot the mechanics, and so we went with the follow the blob strat because we forgot them too, and Abo had never done it before. And the entire blob got vaporized.
It wasn't just like, oh well, one of the groups did it wrong. It's like the raid did it wrong, apart from like 2 people.
Everybody did it wrong.
So there's just 22 corpses all standing in the same spot because everybody did the exact opposite of what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, there was another point when the next time time we did the boss, we did kill it, but it was like the messiest kill you can possibly imagine.
Yeah, there were several occasions where the group had a disagreement on what should have been done, and exactly half of the raid went one way and half of the raid went the other way, and you'd flip a coin and one half would die.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Well, there was one point where me, Vol, and a few other people were on the right side, and like most of the raid had gone to the wrong side, and the entire raid got vaporized, and we were frantically fighting to resuscitate a raid that by all rights should have been a wipe right there. We managed to pull it out though.
Yeah, we did. For most of these, in fact, we managed to pull it out eventually. It's just, I'm glad I went as Red Mage. Normally I prefer to go as healer for a lot of these, but I went as Red Mage thinking, you know what, it's useful to have a res, and I kind of want the bonuses for being max level, so I'll go as Red Mage, even though I normally would go as a healer. But I'm glad I did, because the amount of chain rezzing I had to do, like rezzing 4 or 5 people at a stretch, like I was just hammering the lucid dreaming button on cooldown continually, because I was just emptying my health, my mana bar faster than I could fill it. There were some fights like Red Girl, I did almost no DPS.
Oh yeah, I was frantically trying to keep our group stabilized, and we had Adam with an E, just being the stat collector.
Yeah, like I don't. Some of those numbers next to the stack I've never seen before.
Yeah,
like,
I think his record
for
was
vulnerability
8.
stacks.
I think his record was 8 before he just started getting one shot.
Oh dear.
He was our tank.
Oh dear.
On a boss that insta kills people if you don't have 3 tanks.
But what were the other tanks doing?
They were dead.
Oh.
Yeah, they were dead. So what would happen is we'd have me frantically trying to prep Adam for the inevitable tank buster that's probably going to kill him anyway, and 2 poor unfortunate DPS that were doing the best DPS about to get whacked. And they just die. There's no saving them.
It is bad.
It is my favorite raid in the game by a long way. I just love it. I love everything about it. I love the fights, I love the mechanics, I love the aesthetic, I love the music. It's great. It's just that everybody in there is a total clown.
Yeah. How do brick blocks work in? Even we don't know how to do blocks apparently for Red Girl.
I can't process that information quickly enough. Usually because I'm not ready for it. Because the first time I did it, I didn't have any problems. I was able to read the fight quite quickly and stand in the right place like 90% of the time. But this time I was so preoccupied with trying to resurrect the 50% of the raid that was dead that I just kept missing things over and over again.
Yeah, and this was not a group that learned on the fly. This was a group that would continue to make the same mistakes over and over again.
I love
it. It was a painful experience. But we got a story out of it.
Yeah,
and I enjoy that. I enjoy that dungeon under any circumstances, really. Like, I just like it. I think it's a really good instance. If you haven't done it, go do it. It's really good.
All the near raids are good. Like, the only boss in Tower of Paradigms that's even kind of meh is Hansel and Gretel, and there's still plenty of opportunity for clownery in that fight, as we found out.
Yeah, I mean, if that fight actually becomes like you have to show some alertness if the fight really drags on, like it did.
Oh yeah, because everybody was dead all the time, we had no DPS on the bosses, so these fights took easily like over 10 minutes.
We had 3 red mages in the raid also, and none of them were doing any DPS.
All too busy rezzing?
Yeah, we were all healing, rezzing.
Oh, that sounds...
We would patch ourselves up to trigger our dual cast and then res somebody, and then patch ourselves up for the damage that we stood in while we were trying to work out where the next res target was, and then res another person. It's just like, people were up and down and up and down and up and down. Most of the raid had full resurrection sickness stacks.
Oh.
So our DPS output was miserable.
Yeah, and even though I'm the healer in that raid, I did not have time to stop and res people because somebody's got to do the actual healing.
And we effectively only had one healer in our group.
Yeah, the other one was either dying all the time, or I'm not sure what they were doing. I saw Medica 2 on people sometimes.
He was dead more often than he was alive. Like he was my most rezzed target, and it wasn't close.
Yeah, so I'm frantically trying to keep the group alive.
What was it? Was it just people not knowing the mechanics, or people just standing in stuff, or?
It's partly that people don't know the mechanics, because a lot of people will have only done it a few times, because there's so many things in the roulette pool now. That you just don't see it that often. Number two, the mechanics are more complex, generally speaking, than anything outside of the Rabanasta series.
Yep.
And number three, the mechanics tend to snowball aggressively when you start getting things wrong.
Yeah, stabilizing your group is a thing that is very difficult if you start to fall apart in Tower of Paradigms, especially.
Yeah, there's a lot of tricksy mechanics where you have to stand in the fire, in a sense. Like, for instance, when Red Girl's going to drag you on the chains across the room, almost always the optimal way to deal with that is to go and stand in the bombs that are about to explode and trust that she will yank you out of them with her other mechanics before they go off. Like, that's pretty common. And on Hansel and Gretel, you basically have to you have to head towards the place where the whirling saw blades are about to collide with each other, because you need to trust that by the time the attack goes off that you're trying to dodge, a space will have been created for you to stand in such that you won't die.
Yeah.
Oh joy!
And you need to know their visual tells for their big hits almost the entire room attack, and the only tell is which hand they're holding their weapon in.
You just have to remember, because it's not logical.
Yeah, if they're holding, because they stand side by side at the far end of the room, if they're holding their weapons in their hands so that the weapons are close to each other, so the inner hands of the two standing side by side, you need to run as far away from them as you can possibly get, otherwise you're just dead.
Oh joy!
And the opposite if it's on their outer hands. You need to run past them at the far end of the room and go all the way to the wall. And then they start swapping weapons positions halfway through the fight.
Yeah, so then you have to do the opposite of whatever it looks like that you're going to have to do. But because neither of them are really logically connected. Like, it's not like a lot of bosses have a mechanic where one arm or one wing or something like that will light up and then they'll nuke that side of the room.
Yep.
In this case, it doesn't actually make sense like that. You just have to remember, when they raise this pair of arms, that means you stand there. There's not a logical progression to get to the answer, or at least not one that I can see. Like, there is a relationship between the way they slash and the part of the room that gets attacked, but it's not really one that's coherent with their appearance on the model, such that you can really understand what it is that they're doing by looking. You have to remember, and then you have to remember to do the opposite if they're linked together at the time that they do it.
Yeah. You can see that they're slightly tilted and facing a direction, and that's how they're going to hit, but in that room, you can't really tell.
It's a featureless void. There's not much to observe.
Yeah, it's there ain't a whole lot to visually indicate in a white void on a circular platform that is also the same color as the background.
Oh, that just sounds needlessly confusing.
Oh, the color scheme like that gets in the way of one boss mechanic so bad that on the last boss they changed the color of her targeting circle to orange.
Just so you can see it.
Yeah, because the purple graphic wouldn't work correctly with the way the environment changes as you're fighting. Because the purple graphic typically projects onto the surface that light will collide with in the engine, whereas unfortunately the floor becomes transparent during this fight at various points. So in order for you to actually be able to tell what she's doing, you wouldn't be able to see the circle because it would project through the floor. So they create a special targeting indicator for her it's not even a targeting indicator, it's like an aura that appears around her specifically to show the direction she's pointing, since she's got directional attacks that you need to concern yourself with. But
they thought of doing that.
It's a very interesting instance in a lot of ways. I like the music for the final boss, but the final boss is much simpler in my opinion. And
Yeah,
easier to
she's
get a handle on than Red Girl. Red Girl is my favorite Alliance boss fight, and also a total nightmare that I can't do to save myself.
yeah, she is. There's so many mechanics in that fight, and so much stuff that could potentially go wrong.
I don't think that there's really that many mechanics. There's like lots of variations on a core theme. The problem is that your brain goes into meltdown trying to process the information through that rubric. Because the rubric is very, very simple, and that's that black things destroy white things and white things destroy black things. And everything is related to that principle one way or another. The problem is that how black things and white things are arranged spatially, you have to actively process at all times.
Yeah, they're
Because
all
there are
over
lots
the
of
arena. And there's
blocks
so
and
many of
walls
them.
and missiles and bombs and all kinds of things, and everything will be coded to black or white. And whether you want to shelter or intercept them with whatever color and that sort of thing, that's all stuff that you have to do sort of live processing in your brain as you play.
Yeah. Oh, and we had a group fail the hacking minigame. That was fun.
It's a much, much easier fight for straight DPS because the only thing you need to worry about is your DPS and what's going on in the fight. If you have other things to put up with, like rezzing half the group, that takes away brain power that you need to use to process what's going on in the fight.
Yeah,
And
I felt like
much harder.
I would get whacked by random stuff way more in this run than we did the first time. Partially because I didn't come out of just watching the video, but also because my brain was occupied trying to stabilize the group.
Yeah, and that's why it's one of those fights where you need to say out loud things that are happening, sort of so that your vocal and auditory cortex are doing the processing. You're offloading some of the mental burden onto your auditory and vocal processes so that you can actually use your subvocal and the sort of mental processes to think about, oh well, this is the other tasks that I have to do while the fight's going on around me. It's quite complicated, and I dread to think what a Savage version would be like if they ever decide to release one.
Oof.
So I don't think you can make it much more nightmarish.
Yeah,
Like, I love it. It's a great fight. But yeah, so basically my gaming stories come from the 2 hours before the show sort of time span because I didn't do much else during the rest of the week. I have scheduled at least one day off because I'm owed so many. It's not funny at this point. I think I've worked, despite having taken a holiday in like September last year to visit my family, something I'm now banned from doing by the government. I've still got like 22 paid days of leave in the bank, kind of thing. So I'm taking a day off at like the week after next or something like that, which is just like mental decompression time because I need it badly. I'm incredibly overwrought right now because before it was like there was another senior that I worked with a lot, and a lot of difficult decisions are easier to make when you can toss them back and forth. So it was a situation where something would happen, something would come up that would require consideration to solve, and we would consult, toss it back and forth, come up with a resolution, execute the plan, and that would be that done. But now there's just me because he left. So I've got to do all of that mental processing by myself, and it takes a lot longer for me to come to decisions about things, which therefore compresses the amount of time I have to spend on other things. Plus I have to train the replacement staff for the people who have left. And so basically my brain is dribbling out my ears at this point. And the lab manager just went on holiday to Queenstown. So things are getting incredibly rough right now, and I'm at the end of my rope, and I'm not going to be the one that breaks. I'm going to let things start to shatter around me if nobody helps me. So that's the way it gonna be. At any rate,
themselves.
That's the end of my tale of suffering, which is just the workload is not that high just yet. It's ramping up as everything comes back online, but it's not that high just yet. But the mismanagement and the lack of staff is causing it to be much harder than it would be otherwise. But yeah, so I'll call an end to it there because suffering. I haven't started watching the new season of anime yet, and I'm sort of hesitant to do so because, surprise, surprise, it's 50% isekai again.
Yeah, there's
Like-
nothing that's really stood out for me.
It's like Isekai is like it's like the I want to have a Game Shark and play JRPGs. If anybody remembers Game Sharks, is any like how many people who call themselves gamers, who think of themselves as gamers now, have never even heard of Game Shark?
Oh, I remember Game Genies.
You know, Game Genie and Game Shark were contemporaneous with each other. They're just competing companies, basically.
Basically.
Yeah.
But that's like that. Even that very concept, the very concept of a Game Shark, is something that I don't think you could explain to like a Zoomer.
Yeah. Games usually have a mode that's so baby journalist here that you don't really need a Game Shark. There's not much fun to be had with stuff that a Game Shark could do. I mean, there were some cool codes in some games in the code books. Remember the code books? The physical books you would buy?
Half of them were full of lies.
Yeah, and occasionally they would have updates, and you would get them from magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
It was very strange.
But nowadays, there just ain't that much you could do with a Game Shark.
That is true, but I think it's also, even on a technological level, I think that the concept is completely unable to explain, because it's like I don't know if do people even use trainers anymore?
Yeah,
because that's like the intermediate level between every game just having baby mode and Game Shark as trainers. But like when you can't download stuff from the internet, you purchase a little grey box that's the trainer.
Yeah.
If you're into that kind of thing.
But you don't need to really do that anymore. You're more just jailbreak your console.
Yeah, like the what I'm saying is to explain the concept that there's like this auxiliary plug-in piece of technology that you use to cheat at games. Like, I never had one. I didn't really understand why anybody would want one, because then you're not really playing the game, you're just breaking it.
Cheating.
But yeah, the idea that there's like this separate device which you use in order to subvert the video game is like
depending
wow,
on depending on what console you had, you'd like plug the Game Shark into the top of the console and then put your cartridge onto that. With some of them.
Well, for a PlayStation, you plug them into the back.
Yeah, PlayStation 1 was in the back.
Because there was a serial port, like it was a printer.
Yes.
Oh, remember? Did either of y'all?
Because printers used serial ports.
Yeah, they did. Did either of y'all have the N64 Game Shark?
No, I never saw the 64 one.
Like I said, I never had a Game Shark.
Yeah, so the N64 Game Shark had, you put the cartridge on top of the Game Shark and then put the Game Shark into the cartridge slot.
Yeah, so it was one of those ones.
I remember that.
The Ants Knuckles treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing to secure the cartridge onto the Game Shark, and those pins would get ruined, and you would have to go in there and either manually bend them back or huff and puff in that thing and hope it's just dust.
That was a common thing. Like, they were always done cheap. Like, if you played the Sonic 3 and Knuckles game, the and Knuckles dock was incredibly robust.
This sounds like something you should just like buy a roll of masking tape.
Well,
it wasn't far off.
The Game Genie, I had a Game Genie for SNES games, although I barely used it. But it had a locking mechanism for the cartridge to keep it stable. It didn't just sit on top of the stupid thing.
Half of them did, though.
Yeah. I remember. I don't know if they executed on it, but I know that they were planning to do Banjo-Tooie like that.
Oh, they for Banjo-Tooie, they wanted you to just rip the cartridge out while it was still on and then put in the new one.
Yeah, don't do
terrifying.
That. Do not do that.
That is why that idea couldn't get off the ground.
Because that is a bad idea.
Yeah, I used to love putting on like the no clip and the ability to walk through walls and levitate and just explore the levels in the games I'd already beat with the Game Sharks. I'd do that all the time.
Yeah, I would read cheats online about, in order to do this particular cheat, you lift up the right hand side of the cartridge just a little bit.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
At this particular point, and I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah, it was not safe at all. Actually, don't do that.
Yeah, it's a good way to ruin your hardware.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where I was basically driving at is all of these concepts. Could you even get a Zoomer to understand?
No, honestly, I don't think you could.
they play games that are perpetually online as well, on top of everything else.
Yeah,
So
well, they mainly play Minecraft, from what I can tell. They play Minecraft and they watch streamers play Five Nights at Freddy's before he got cancelled.
closest thing we could get, yeah, the closest thing we could get to the Zoomers is it's like playing a single player game with mods for Minecraft.
It's a box you plug into your console to install mods, which isn't far from the truth.
It's not, doesn't give a good picture.
No,
but
the thing is that mods are typically endorsed these days. Like the ones that Zoomers use, particularly, they're endorsed by the game developer. The Game Genies and Game Sharks were absolutely not endorsed.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I was actually, I had a conversation similar to this with a younger. He's not as well. Yeah, he's a Zoomer, but he's like, golly, those people are 18 to 20 now. And I was trying to explain to him how in Halo 2 we had a problem with cheating because people would go install mod kits in their Xbox and the procedure they had to go through for that, and he looked like a deer in the headlights. He didn't understand a word I was saying.
This mod kit, is it sorcery? Can you eat it?
So how many of these people know that there's even solder inside those boxes? I don't know what the technological understanding of Zoomers is. Like, I can't use a smartphone properly, but you get all these people who are like, oh well, I mean, what you need to do if your Xbox Red rings is you need to bridge these pins and desolder this bit here, and it will be fixed.
That's fine. Just wrap it in a towel. It's all good.
Like, when my PS2 stopped working, I bought an aftermarket laser from China and I gutted the thing and rebuilt it with a new laser.
I think 3, 4, whatever we're up to.
Oh, it's not worth it with those because the lasers are too expensive.
Yeah.
But
yeah, there's some concepts that just don't apply anymore to gaming.
Don't translate anymore, like trying to explain what a sodding cassette tape is. Or a floppy disk. Like, the number of people who don't know what that icon is, they think of it as the save icon. They don't realise that it's a disk, a diskette.
You really upset a Zoomer by if you're showing them cassette tape. They want to know how to skip the song back. You hand them a pencil.
Yeah, it's I had a rewinder for cassette tapes.
I just used my little finger.
Yeah, I did it. I used my little finger.
Yeah,
those rewinders were kind of a rip.
Yeah, I don't know where my parents got it, but when I was a kid, whenever you were done watching a movie, be sure you put it in the rewinder before we take the movie back to Blockbuster.
Even before you took it back to Blockbuster, if you didn't rewind it, they slapped you with a fee.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the logic, but that still seems kind of mercenary.
Yeah. The Blockbuster, when I was young, did it as well as the Video Easy. Video Easy apparently still exists, though. I didn't know this, but apparently they're doing those burn your own DVD kiosks.
Like, my image of a Video Easy is like synonymous with, how do I describe it? Like, when I picture, say, the logo in my mind, it's like faded to pink from red.
Yes.
Because that's sort of the state of them all now.
Yes.
And they're all sort of kind of grungy. The carpet is worn through in most places.
It's suspiciously sticky.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if there are any around. I know when I was in undergrad, I had a friend who worked nights in a DVD rental store. I don't think they had any VHSs left. And they were a new outfit that was trying to sort of like carve out a space as all of the other ones imploded, and I couldn't help but think, like, what were you thinking? What did you think was going to happen? It was just a phase. People will come back to renting DVDs. I don't know if they shut down. I presume they did, because
probably
it doesn't seem like a growth sector, you know.
You go into the next town over from me. There's actually a big Blockbuster right in the center of town.
Is it Blockbuster still?
Yes, sort of.
I didn't realize that Blockbuster, like the overarching franchise, still exists.
Oh, it doesn't. So this store, they built it right before streaming became a thing. So they built this brand new shiny store, and it was really, really nice. And then streaming happened, Blockbuster went bust, and now this shiny new building is dilapidated and vandalized all to hell.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember even when I was in high school, renting movies was sort of an infrequent thing that some people did, mainly older people. But the video games seemed to be the vast majority of their business.
Yeah.
Like renting out extra controllers and video games seemed to be what was actually spinning money for them. But the internet sort of obliterated that as well. To some extent.
Game downloads became a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, towards the end of it, like DVDs were becoming so cheap that people, rather than rent the DVD, they would buy it, or go to Honest Bob's.
I mean, I still buy Blu-rays. I buy a lot of Blu-rays, but I do it purely to support the show, more or less, and with a sense of deep resentment about everybody involved in the localization process. Back when I could buy subs only Blu-rays, I would buy those, but that's not a thing anymore. Not in this country anyway. But yeah, I had my copy of the first season, or the first half, I suppose, of FGO Babylonia, and my copy of the Case Files anime arrived this week by Ozpost. Therefore, the DVD case of one of them was smashed because Ozpost always break whatever they ship for some reason. And also, it took almost 2 full months to arrive. Not really sure what's going on. Supply chain something COVID something meh.
Something sorry we ate it.
Because during the bad old days, as in like before Coof, it would usually take about 3 weeks tops for Ozpost to send me something, although it would still be broken. But it arrived quickly at least. But now we're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. You ran out of dingoes somewhere along the line. I don't know.
They choked to death on everybody's packages.
They'd probably choked to death on discarded masks, discarded surgical masks. Like, I mean, if you walk through town these days, you see them everywhere, just lying around.
Yeah,
like, it's a massive environmental hazard, in my opinion. Like, worse than all the other crap they're complaining about. Like, people are more concerned about stopping people from mining Bitcoin. Meanwhile, billions of discarded surgical masks are just sort of blowing around the world. I bet there's like a new continent being established in the Pacific Ocean that is just constructed entirely from discarded masks.
Reusable ones.
Don't make a mess. The CDC came out today and said some things that YouTube won't let me repeat. You should go look it up.
Even though the CDC said them, you can't repeat them.
A
lot of the stuff the CDC says needs to spend some time percolating before YouTube is willing to admit that the CDC said it. Yeah,
a whole lot of stuff the CDC said this week has me pulling a razor fist with an "F you, I was right" finger flip chair spin.
Well, everybody's gradually coming around to the position that we occupied since day one. So, yeah. I don't know how long it'll take them to get all the way there, but in the meantime, somebody needs to go out and plant their flag on the new surgical mask continent that I'm sure exists in the ocean at this point.
You should see some of the pumps that we pull out of pits these days. Ever since Coof started, just the impellers are all like jammed with what turns into just a ball of these surgical masks that go down.
Are people flushing
down
them?
the toilet?
Oh yeah.
What is wrong with people?
Yeah. Most of my replacement pumps I sold last year were because wadded up surgical masks had gotten into a wastewater impeller and it didn't have a grinder on it.
Don't flush people. The hell?
Yeah.
So you sell them the tampon grinder things now to deal with surgical masks?
Mm-hmm.
I quite literally just chuck them in the boot of my car, and now there's a big pile of them.
That's not much better, fortunately.
Because well, I mean, what am I going to do with them? They're just going to end up in a landfill anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter where they are.
I guess.
I could burn them, I suppose. Put all that carbon back into the air where it belongs. But yeah, it's they're quite ridiculous. They do nothing. I haven't seen anybody wear one correctly. Everybody puts the twist in the strings to make it easier to breathe. Quite literally, they're willing to tell you this.
That's no.
Because it pinches open the side of the mask so that the air flows freely in behind the mask.
But that
and they don't see any problem with this.
Now my brain hurts. Stop.
But I don't believe that they do anything with regards to the pandemic to begin with. However, that's irrelevant because the people that do still don't use them as though they do. So I have taken to using the reusable masks not because they work, because they don't. It's a well-known fact that they don't. This has been scientifically established for years. However, I just don't have any room left in the boot to chuck more just discarded masks. So I use a company-issued cloth ones now, which are incredibly unpleasant because they feel unpleasantly moist after 10 minutes. They restrict your breathing quite a bit. And generally speaking, they force you to smell whatever you just walked past for the next 5 minutes. But
or smell your breakfast all day.
I've got a cheapy cotton one. I don't think it does absolutely anything whatsoever in terms of airflow.
Oh, I'm not going to spend any money on any of them.
It was a whole $5 from the supermarket.
I use whatever the company issues me.
Appropriately enough, it has a monkey on it.
I only use them under threat of legal force, which is the supermarket and basically nowhere else. I'm already banned from getting a haircut.
Yeah.
Because you can't get a haircut unless you've been vaccinated.
But then you take your mask off for the haircut anyway.
Well, you don't need to wear a mask while getting a haircut. You do need to be vaccinated though.
Over here, the haircut places tried to push that crap, and they would make other people do it. I would walk in there.
They will literally call the police on you if you do.
Yeah, you have a legal problem with it. I'm very fortunate in that in Georgia, at least, one of Kemp's really good moves was his COVID response. And so anybody that was pushing any of the COVID shenanigans, that was all on the corporation. So I could walk in there and be a douchebag about it, and they would just drop it and let it go, which I did a lot.
Yeah, it's according to the rules. I'm supposed to wear one at work, but I haven't been, and gradually everybody else has stopped from watching me not do it because everybody knows that it's a farce. Like the site manager, the business operations manager, said to me that he knows that it's just all political, and the whole point of doing this is just to make sure that the boss is pacified, the big boss is pacified, because he pays too much attention to the news, basically, is what it boils down to.
He's got nothing better to do.
Yeah, I guess not. I don't know what he does with most of his time, but he certainly... I think that he mainly pays attention to the news, not because he believes it, but because he's oversensitive to what the government is going to do to businesses next, and he wants to be out ahead of it to avoid legal trouble.
I can understand that.
Because I mean, he's got several laboratories to look after, and the government changes its mind every 5 minutes. The only reason things have been stable over the Christmas break is that Jacinda has gone on holiday. Nobody knows where she is, and everybody has been breathing a sigh of relief because until she shows up back at Parliament, she can't pass any more emergency laws. Because everything is an emergency law now. There's no consultation process, no debate or anything. She just passes everything under urgency. It's total banana republic stuff right now. So I'm glad that we are not a republic. Actually, public sentiment in favor of republicanism has decreased sharply because people have seen what it's like to have a lunatic running your country with no fallback. Because ultimately, if everything fell apart, the Queen could still pick up the pieces the way the constitutional monarchy operates now.
Yep.
But if we had a president, they would basically be an all-powerful tyrant, and there'd be nothing anybody could say because we don't have a constitution. So yeah, it's I don't know. I've heard that even the godfather of the Australian Republican movement has denounced the current Republican faction that's agitating because they're so crazy.
Yeah. We've actually got an election coming up soon. So
Are they avoiding doing yet another referendum on becoming a republic?
Oh yeah, they're going to continue to put that off as long as they can because Republicans are crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that what really holds up Australia becoming a republic is not lingering sentiment for the monarchy, but the fact that most of the people who are really enthusiastic about republic are completely insane.
Yes, we'll probably see a more measured sentiment towards it if the Queen dies.
Yeah, I hear that.
That as if, not when.
Yes, if.
I hear that Prince Andrew being stripped of his titles has caused a big surge in Republican sentiment in Australia, particularly, and to a lesser extent New Zealand. But it's been offset by the fact that they weren't ready for it because a lot of people were sort of surprised by it and they weren't paying attention to the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and the appeals against the various deals that had been signed in advance of that by Prince Andrew. But now that the royal family has basically told him to go take a hike, a lot of Republican factions have been like, well, see, this shows that we don't need the royal family, they're useless, look at the scandal. And because they sort of jumped on it, they ended up looking like a bunch of loons again, as usual. And so the entire thing has come a cropper. But yeah, if the Queen passes away and it looks like Charles is going to ascend to the throne, then I think the Republican faction will win, probably in both Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
But if they manage to shuffle Charles off his mortal coil and it's his son, the one that we still like, that ascends the throne instead, then I think that the monarchy will probably stick around in the Commonwealth a little bit longer.
We'll see what happens.
At any rate, that has been my rapidly outwardly spiraling tangent.
How do we
to replace the fact that I didn't have a week? I did my best to tangent. My skills are still sharp, as you can see.
We did pretty good. We went from Game Sharks to the royal family.
I mean, I could spin it off to how greasy Albanese is. Let's not. That's Australian politics.
Yeah, Australian politics boils down to everybody there is evil and you need to throw the whole lot out.
I think a lot of them are just stupid. Like, there's no way that the Premier of Western Australia thought that video would play well.
Oh, of course
with
not.
The people that... I mean, to be fair, to be 100% fair to him, it doesn't matter if he has a translator doing Aborigine Creole, because none of the Aborigines that only understand Creole will watch it.
Yeah,
because they don't have televisions. The ones that do all understand English and don't care to watch that crap because they can tell, having understood English, that the Premier is an idiot.
Yeah.
but the idea that sort of video could make its way out on the internet and not have backlash is just absurd. So he must be just a moron.
It's just endless entertainment. But at least with our politicians, we can laugh at them without going to jail.
Yeah. Well, no single one of them is capable of destroying the country at this point because none of them really have that much power. Like, they're all authoritarians, they're all tin pot dictators, but they're only dictators over a narrow scope of the country because of your extremely weird arrangement of states, which is not quite like the American ideal where the states are hyper independent, but it's also not quite centralized either.
It's kind of in the middle somewhere, yeah.
So, because nobody knows exactly who is responsible, everybody can push responsibility on someone else.
Yeah.
So nothing gets done.
Nothing gets done.
So, which is really what you want out of a government.
Yeah, they are there for military and trust busting.
Well, that tends to be what a lot of people's approach to the Australian government is. Is that, well, they're busy politicking and doing whatever the hell there is. We'll just go over here and get on with the real work.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have an iron-fisted tyrant who controls the entire country and has decided to sell all of the water infrastructure to the iwi. Because that's what we needed.
That's
and
the
also,
newest one, is it?
Well, the newest one is actually the reason why drownings are at an all-time high is not because people have been locked inside for 2 years and have forgotten how to swim, but because people have not been saying enough prayers to Tangaroa, the Maori god of the sea, and that this is what we should be spending our money on instead. Selling out the country to a pagan god. Because, the thing is, Tangaroa may be god of the sea, but his actual ability is to make certain fat cats in the iwi extraordinarily wealthy via the government.
Yeah,
I mean,
that seems to
Everyone
be.
seems a little bit flabbergasted.
I'm trying to
about my country's
process that, but every
humanity.
time you say something, you make it worse. Stab.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you're a Maori tohunga and you say prayers to Tangaroa, for some reason you become enriched because the New Zealand government will suddenly be seized by the desire to give you money to do it.
And now
But
my brain hurts.
he clearly must have some kind of power because he makes you richer.
Most demons do, but there's still many reasons you don't go looking for them for help.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently New Zealand neo-paganism has been on the rise because New Zealand neo-paganism is very, very intimately tied into being woke, which is, of course, ascendant. So, sort of like burning your pinch of incense to the pagan gods of the Maori is a good way to get ahead in life because it's politically expedient to do so.
I see.
This is the political discourse in my country. That's where we're at now. It's like which gods you worship is important to the progression of your career.
That is completely against the ideals.
I don't know. I don't know if the country has any ideals. I haven't seen them in a very long time.
I haven't actually looked at what the founding of New Zealand was like.
We're supposed to be an Anglican country fundamentally. Like our head of state is the Queen, and she is also the head of the Anglican Church. So, but I don't know where Tangaroa comes into it. But apparently he's going to be enriching some tohungas pretty soon, or at least people who are masquerading as tohungas, because there probably aren't any real ones left, any hereditary ones or properly trained ones from the original pagan culture, because paganism is heavily monetized now, you see.
I see. So, pagan gods aside, we're at about an hour and 20 minutes. We should probably go to a break.
Yep, we should.
All right, here's some music, folks. We'll be right back. And we're back at the end of All's Week, which was about pagan gods and game genies and
the royal family.
All kinds of other stuff.
It went places.
That's how I roll. I'm a tangent artisan.
Yeah, you always doubt our ability to go on tangents, and then we don't just not disappoint, we exceed expectations every single time.
Yeah. So, while we're speaking of bad ideas, I'm going to play some Risk of Rain now. This is going to end badly because there's a lot of audio cues in this game. I can't hear squat while I'm doing the show.
You'll be fine.
Fine. I mean, I could turn it on, but then make the show sound absolutely... So...
Yeah. Alrighty. I guess we'll get into my week, and I might be able to backfill it with some media from previous weeks throughout the break that I didn't get to if I think hard enough.
Okay.
So, my week was entirely consumed by work. It's the start of a new year. People go on holiday for Christmas and New Year's all over the U.S., and especially in Georgia, because, Christmas is still a big deal here. And they all came back. And they all want something. And so I am sitting there with my butt in that chair in that office until 7 o'clock some nights, just going and going and going. I don't have time to do anything except for sitting there doing quotes, basically.
What's more, they all want something at last year's price with last year's shipping charges.
Yeah,
also, right now.
I'm so glad we never, ever have quoted shipping charges. We just put "add" in the quote, and we've done that forever. And that's been a real boon to us, because things that would have cost like maybe $180 to ship cross country. We're looking at about $3,000 now.
Woofy.
I mean, shipping charges are through the roof. We are exponents higher than we were a year ago.
That's nuts.
Yeah, well, that's what you get when you don't become energy independent anymore.
You completely hollow out the entire energy industry.
Yeah. So by now, most customers are used to it. I don't really have to explain price increases. They just kind of assume every time I give them a quote, I'm throwing a dart at a board to see how much I can get away with.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of people do that, so...
It's true.
I mean, oftentimes my pricing when I quote somebody is based on what I think I can get away with on this job, but for regular customers, I try to stay consistent. They usually get a discount from list price for buying from us, but I don't go super low. I've had to just list stuff at list price plus 6%. It's the only way to keep up with inflation and keep our same earnings. And I haven't been able to increase our pay either to compensate. So people are getting quotes from me that are, 26% bigger sometimes.
Oh dear.
And what's unfortunate for the customer is we're one of the lighter touches on how bad we've jacked up our prices. Because our stuff was already expensive. We sell high quality products that are meant to last for 20, 30 years and are not just a cheap throwaway Stancor pump or something.
Yeah.
So,
there's a massive difference, not just in terms of price, but quality is what you get with a high price pump.
Yeah, if you want to structure that thing, it has to be... all our pumps, except for a very few select stock models, have to be built to order in factory to ensure this. Like, we have to know your flow rate ahead of time, your GPM and your feet ahead, and we have to get you what you need and call the factory and tell them the order's coming and write down that information there and select an impeller trim based on that information that they can install, the type of seals that might be usable for that particular pump. This is why just quoting somebody a pump isn't something I can do.
Yeah.
It's a much more involved process when you're trying to get something from us, because we're getting you something that's going to last and be tailored to your situation, and you pay for that. But
back when I worked with the building firm, I remember the absolute nightmare of large-scale fire suppression system pumps.
Yeah, those probably use boosters to move the water into a higher elevation. I hate boosters. We don't rep any. We used to rep Green Turtle, and they sell boosters. We don't rep for them anymore.
Yeah, remember, I was only on the paperwork side of things, but you still had to go through and make sure they had enough flow and that they had enough boosters to make sure everything would go where it needed to. And
the worst part is when they start writing down stuff that doesn't exist on a spec.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
They will write down a preferred model number, an RPM, a horsepower, and they'll list their flow rate and feet ahead. And it will be something like that flow rate and feet ahead does not work with that horsepower for that pump model that you're recommending. It's not even on the graph. And I have to give them a phone call and explain to them, you ain't getting this pump model with this flow rate because it's too big or it ain't big enough, and where you're at is nowhere near on the graph. Usually it's not big enough. They'll want something tiny to try and skimp on cost. And I'm like, yeah, you're not moving 200 GPM at 50 feet ahead with a little dinky 2 horsepower pump.
Yeah, I trained as an engineer, so while I don't know anything about pump models, I did learn how to calculate all of the required parameters for any given task from scratch. But I also sat in on engineering design meetings because you've got to do time in the industry in order to get your degree, and the sort of crap that they will try and get away with in those meetings, in order to just cut costs, is alarming to say the least.
Yeah. So I'm gonna trim the guy who sent it to me out of the image I sent Vol earlier this week and dump it in live show chat, just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that gets dumped in my email box and winds up on my desk. If you can interpret this, please tell me what any of those numbers mean.
All right, let us see. It's probably going to get me killed in the game. Yeah, there.
The
Okay.
answer is no, you can't.
I mean, it's no deal for me to get to Discord. Give me a sec.
But
1603 degrees Fahrenheit.
no,
Hang on, what?
there is no
Well,
labels. There is no labels.
I'm guessing at the units, man. Cut me some slack.
Horsepower, maybe? I don't know.
N3?
So,
Yes.
I'll tell you what it is after I called the guy. He wanted a 1603 pump for a 50 GPM system, and he wanted it at 1.5 horsepower. And it had Remarks 1, which he cropped out, and I had to get from him on the phone call.
But
Because he
so there's a comment. There's a comment attached.
There's a comment
to that.
attached. Okay.
He just didn't bother to include it.
Yeah, he just didn't include whatever Remark 1 was from the table. So I had to get that from him. And what's funny about this is 1603 1.5 horsepower will do 50 GPM, but he wanted this in an elevator? This thing don't fit in an elevator. Like, in the US, it is standard to, whenever you install an elevator system, in Georgia at least, it's code, state code, that you have to have a elevator pump in the elevator in case it floods. This thing is never going to turn on. Ever turn on. For any reason. The water will never get high enough to trip the sensor and turn this thing on, even if it does get flooded. But it's code to have them because presumably it was a disaster somewhere and the legislature said, okay, we got to do something.
Yeah. It's an ass covering procedure, probably.
So what every manufacturer I rep for does is they have prepackaged elevator systems that are stock models. They just keep a handy supply of because every building will need one.
Yep.
If it's got an elevator in it. And so I sent him one of those instead. And this was after hours of trying to get in touch with this guy and figure out what the heck a labelless table means.
That's just numbers without any meaning, is what that is.
Yeah. So that's what my job boils down to when you get right down to it, is trying to interpret the strange scrawlings and of what people tell you they want and turn that into an actual product. Yeah. That's the whole point of a rep, is to go, okay, you say you want this. Let me be sure that's what you actually want.
I used to do that sort of thing with site plans. It's like you'd have an engineered plan for a shed, for example. Someone got that from the supplier, and that's all hunky-dory. But their site plan was something they did on a piece of scrap paper with no ruler.
Oh yeah, I'm lucky if I get the scrap paper. Usually, I get a copy paste of their master spec when an engineer sends me something, and it has nothing that they need and stuff they don't need. I had a guy in some little restaurant somewhere tell me he needed an explosion-proof pump.
I'm sorry, what?
All of those explosions that it needs to withstand?
Yeah, all that exploding chicken.
What are you doing in that restaurant?
To be fair, have you seen the new KFC product that's been going viral?
Oh no. What is it?
It's Beyond Chicken.
Beyond Chicken.
Is it like the taste like chicken but isn't thing?
Is it chicken that they've just stored in a vacuum for half an hour?
No, there's no chicken involved.
Oh, it's one of those products.
Yeah, it's some chemical mushed into a solid form that
they've been
emulates
marketing.
chicken.
Because I love these digressions, these tangents. They've been marketing this product right as they're chicken nuggets, except so they've got their Kentucky Fried Chicken packaging, except the red part is green now because
of course it is.
Fake chicken is green. But what it looks like, because I've seen some photographs of cross sections of this chicken. Like I can see sort of what they've done in order to sort of emulate flesh texture. So it looks like how do I describe?
I think the phrase emulated flesh texture says it all.
It's layered like in the way you would lay a pastry, except it's sort of like grey. Like it's like
Yeah.
totally middle nondescript grey sheets that have been pressed together and then cut into blocks. And it does not sound very appetizing, so they batter it to try and make it look like chicken nuggets. But yeah, apparently it tastes awful, like sort of like chicken-esque but incinerated, or something like that. Now that's more or less as expected for a fake chicken. But the thing that I found highly amusing is that somebody was talking about it in a thread online, and they said that they work at the factory that produces Beyond Chicken substitute, and the thing that bothers them about it the most is that, you know, well, basically this thing's manufactured in big giant sheets that are cut into shape by pressurized water jets and that. So they have a certain amount of waste, and they chuck the waste away. The thing is that the waste does smell just like rotting meat, except that the flies won't go near it.
Oh, that says a lot. You remember, actually, I think it was only last year before now, when Burger King or Hungry Jack's had the Impossible Whopper. They had that big campaign saying this Whopper tastes exactly like a regular Whopper, but it's completely vegetarian. No, this tastes like a recycled Whopper. That tasted.
Yeah, it's like it's from what I hear, it's something like it tastes like what would happen if you incinerated a Whopper, collected the ashes, and then pressed them back into the shape of a burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they gotta overcook these things to hide the nasty. Or to hide the obvious, not whatever their marketing is, taste.
Yeah, I hide the fact that it's about 95% MSG.
Yeah. Which is fine, because like Burger King Australia, or Hungry Jack's rather, has a reputation for burning their burgers anyway, so.
And 4.9% liquid smoke.
Yes. So here's a big old hint for you. If you're health conscious, you would not be going anywhere near a KFC. So who is this product for?
It's for people who want to be publicly seen to be eating non-chicken chicken, so that they can strut about how they don't support battery farming.
Sadomasochists, then.
Like if you go to KFC, you're gonna get original recipe, meal box for yourself, or a 12 piece bucket for your family, and you're gonna know it's unhealthy and it's a giant grease ball giving everybody heart attacks in 20 years. But you're not gonna care because it's gonna taste amazing.
Yeah.
You're not going to care about KFC suddenly having the soy chicken.
Or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Is it even soy? I don't know.
There may be soy involved, but there's no special reason to believe that there's anything of biological origin at all.
Yeah.
Unless it's simply, you know, a biological byproduct.
Toilet cream.
But yeah, I don't want to go to KFC under the best of times.
I go to KFC because I want their food because it tastes great. And then I hate myself for the day afterwards. This is how KFC is supposed to be. I know. I read the Campylobacter plates for the poultry processors, and I know how much Campylobacter is in there. And I know that there is a, how do I say, Campylobacter testing is routine in order to establish sort of Campylobacter levels in poultry processors and poultry farms. The thing with Campylobacter is that the standard monitoring method requires you to sample poultry rinses, and then you test them for Campylobacter. The thing is, Campylobacter is an extremely fragile organism when it's removed from where it likes to be. So there is a 24-hour limit, roughly, depending on conditions. Sometimes you might be able to extend it. But let's say there's a 24-hour limit on sample time to testing time. Right, so you're going to send them a poultry rinse diluent. The usual spec will be Peptone in water with a bit of sodium thiosulfate added to neutralize any of the chlorine-based detergents that will be used in cleaning the chicken carcasses. The thing is that Campylobacter will start to die at the beginning of the sampling process and will continually die until the testing. So over the course of that 24 hours, a really high Campylobacter count can become a really low Campylobacter count by the standard method. So even if you pass your Campylobacter monitoring and you've got sufficiently low Campylobacter counts in your chicken products, that bears almost no relationship to what is actually present. It's just your test results. Right.
I see.
So I know for a fact that there is often quite a bit of Campylobacter in these things, but I also know that the count would be much, much higher if the testing conditions were made more stringent, and it would also, in that case, actually reflect what's in the product. And what goes out to market is simply the things that pass their tests.
So there's chicken poo in your chicken.
Well, it's nothing to do with whether or not it's chicken poo. Like, you do often find huge amounts of Campylobacter in the cecal sacs of the chicken, but generally speaking, chickens are havens for Campylobacter, and because the monitoring conditions are so loosey-goosey, most of that stuff will end up in food product. And KFC is a notorious final resting place for Campylobacter.
Oh, that's real.
Yeah. So yeah, we were at my week and we got to chickens.
I told you I'm an artisan.
So yeah, I've just had a whole lot of that type of thing I posted in live show chat sent my way, where I have to be in constant, back and forth with the customers about what they actually want and trying to interpret whatever the heck they're telling me, which is always never in anything that makes any kind of sense. And I hate whenever a young woman calls me, especially if she has kind of, the young adult, fresh out of college, like ditzy
knows
tone.
Something absolutely doesn't.
Yeah, the know-it-all ditz voice. And
used to getting her way.
Yeah, when you tell her she's wrong, you don't call a rep to talk to a salesperson. I'm a salesperson when I'm in the field, or when I'm talking to a new customer. If you're calling me as a returning customer, you're calling me to get the right product. And these little ditzes don't understand that. And that means I have to tell you you're wrong a lot. And I can tell it to you politely, but they don't like to hear it. And they also are wrong way more on average than anyone else. Period. And they're usually some poor secretary that the engineer handed the spec to and said, call this guy and see what he can do for a price on this thing.
At the end of the day, they're really not the person you should be talking to in the first place.
Yeah. But they think that they know enough about whatever they're asking about to tell you what's what. Well, that ain't gonna work.
No.
But they don't seem to care very much. And I had 2 of those this week to deal with. So yeah, my workload isn't down yet. I've been able to keep pace with it, but it just has a backlog. It's one of them times where I just got to keep going. And so I was MIA all week long. I would get home at 7, and I would play a couple hours of the game Vol got me for Christmas, and then I'd go straight to bed. But yeah, I did manage to finish it though, and the game he got me was Fist.
Yes.
Which their development company.
Furry game.
Yeah,
Furry
so
game.
it's a Metroid style.
It was the only thing, like with Fern, it was the only thing I could get through the sodding filter.
Yes. So there's a reason for that. I'll get to that after I explain what the game actually is. It's a Metroid style game with heavily combo focused combat that follows all the traditional tropes of the Metroid style game genre. I just don't like saying its name because it still hurts me. And you're allowed a very freeform, weapon swappy, almost Devil May Cry in a 2D environment style of combo system, where you're constantly flipping between weapons and doing different combinations and directional holds with heavy and light attacks. And it looks like if the game had a bit more meat to it, you could really get into. Now, you might be wondering why the heck this thing made it past the price barrier. Well, it's because a team in Hong Kong got eaten by China.
Oh, no.
So that's where this game comes from. And it's really interesting to see, a game which is more narratively focused than a lot of these type of games. Focus on a bunch of small resistance types fighting against a big oppressive collective, and somehow this made it past the Chinese censors. The big oppressive collective of robot animals are murdering and torturing the poor little still human and normal animals, and they got to rise up and overthrow the government, basically. So you can tell the origins were in Hong Kong, and the game was probably in dev right before it got eaten.
Yeah.
So
this game would have been E3 a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, I remember seeing it.
And it's fun to play. It's if the game had a bit more meat to it, it would be really good. The areas are, some of them are pretty big, but most of them just feel a little small. It's my only real complaint about it, and it's a pretty short game. You can get through it in about 8 to 10 hours and 100% it. It doesn't quite have the lawnmower map problem that some other games I've been playing in the subgenre lately have, where Metroid Dread is absolutely awful about lawnmower map. Where
I wanted to find that.
So, lawnmower map is, in order to complete a map of a room, you have to touch every section that counts as a map section in that room. And in Metroid Dread, that is your character model.
Oh. So Samus doesn't notice a wall unless she rubs her face against it.
It'll map a little bit ahead of what you actually reveal for you, but it won't light it up like you've explored it unless you physically touch it. So this leads to a whole lot of why I call it lawnmower map, mowing the lawn.
Things.
Yeah, you gotta mow.
That system is what really turned me off finishing Persona Q. That has that same sort of thing, the Etrian Odyssey style map, where you have to explore every tiny little corner to map the whole thing.
Yeah. But that's kind of they're going for something with that, at least. That's the point of those type of games.
Yeah.
In the Metroid style games, you don't need to lawnmower an entire room. Usually, if Metroid Fusion did it perfectly, and most games follow suit. If you go into a room, that room is or a section of a room, that square is, and which is everything you can see on the screen, is lit up on the map, and it will light the whole square for your whole screen.
Yeah.
And that's just how it goes. And then if there's sometimes when you get upgrades later, if something interesting's in that square, it will change that square to a different color to let you know there's a puzzle there later.
Yeah, something similar to that.
But yeah. So Fist doesn't quite fall into lawnmower map, but it tries sometimes, in that you have a much bigger blade on your lawnmower, as it were, while you're cutting the map fog of war away. But it's still there. So you still do have to get pretty into the nooks of the area that isn't marked as explored yet to get it to count. And some of these are there's just a corner up on the edge that has nothing in it that you just need to go jump up to. But it's not too bad. Especially not compared to Metroid Dread, which lawnmower map is the reason I haven't finished that game yet. I hate lawnmower map. It's a real problem with the subgenre. And people need to stop doing it, now.
Everything.
Yes, it does. So, but other than that, it's a fairly standard, easy to play Metroid type of game. You go in, you collect your upgrades, you get new weapons to play with new combos with. There's you get rewards for completing fighting game type trials that involve weapon switching as they get later to do some basic combos. And those are fun. And all the bosses are surprisingly engaging, I found, with the game. None of them were super easy. Relative to what we're talking here. It's still a single-player Metroid game. If you really went and explored before you got to that particular boss and went back to every single zone every time you got a new item, maybe you could outscale some of them. But for the most part, they all require you to at least learn the basic pattern. And maybe you can get hit by a few special attacks. So you can't just health tank your way through the bosses, which is nice because that's another hole this subgenre falls into a lot. Is you can just face tank everything the boss does if you've been thorough enough in your exploration. Fist at least makes it so that you have to learn what the boss is doing, or at least learn its basic attack pattern, which means a wiper too. But there's a checkpoint right beside every single boss door, so this is never a problem.
Doesn't sound like a big deal then.
Yeah, so you'll probably get whomped the first time you do it, unless you just happen to click with the boss, and then you'll get in there and you'll beat him up pretty good. And there's a whole lot of I could go into if I was more conscious while I was playing it, but one of the pitfalls of doing this after long days of work was my brain was on its way towards bedtime, so there ain't a whole lot of mental juice to retain a whole lot of the nuances I would normally go into in these type of games. But I enjoyed my time with it. Yeah. So and that's really the only thing I played, and that was only for 4 days. It took me about 8.5, 9 hours to 100%. Which, while short, is not, insultingly short.
Yep.
So
hopefully we'll have some better games to talk about next week. Honestly, I think I'm just gonna hold out for Pokemon Arceus.
Yeah, I might bite the bullet and finally go through Dread if I'm stuck on another week like last week. I hope I'm not. And then yeah, that's pretty much it for media consumed this week. I could stretch, but we've already got time stretched enough. If I was dig into past weeks and try and recall some stuff,
that's fine.
But I'll keep that stuff in reserve for if it becomes relevant later. And that's about it I got for my week. It's a whole lot of work and nothing else. I've just been way too busy and too tired. I don't have anybody else to rely on anymore. I am effectively alone and doing everything myself. Had to go down to Haralson County one. Well, he's there, but
yeah,
he's the opossum.
He mainly makes things worse rather than helping.
Yeah, I made him. Oh, I didn't make him, but his buddy was down at the job site we had to go to this week, which was way down in Haralson County. And it's like a 3-hour drive away, and I was just tired from the rest of the week and didn't want to do the drive. So I encouraged him to come along so that he could do half the drive. I said, I'll drive us down there if you drive us back.
Yeah, those long drives suck.
Well, it used to be normal, and when I had, all my mental faculties at the start of the day and I wasn't tired from the previous day, I could go cross state all the time and go drive around and go on, on the road for 8 hours a day, driving to job sites and doing whatever. I can't do that when I'm alone and I'm exhausted from the previous day. That's not just unfun. That's a health hazard to me and every other driver on the road with me.
Yeah, do not do that. Do not drive tired.
Yeah, so I actually almost took a nap on the way home. I was so tired. I was somewhere between dreamland and awake.
If you're in that state, definitely stop driving.
But yeah, and it was really dumb. It was just a startup, and I hate these things. We show up, we make sure the thing turns on, and that it's doing what it's supposed to do, and then we tick off a few boxes on a sheet after not doing any of the tests we're actually supposed to, because nobody does. Like, I'm not going to go crawl down that pit and spin the impeller by hand. It's just not happening. I did that kind of thing when I first started doing this, and somebody eventually told me, nobody does that. They just put the check mark next to it. And then let whoever needs to take a picture of the piece of paper take a picture of it, rip the paper off, give it to whoever the contractor or whoever the site manager is, and go drive home.
Yeah, that sounds more like it.
Yeah. So, that was a week. Next week unfortunately, the start of it's going to continue in the same vein. I just don't see it slowing down, and there's no way to tell when it's going to slow down. You remember last year when I went MIA for 2 months?
Yep.
Or something like that? Yeah, we're approaching workload similar to that.
Yeah.
So
I'm still running low on the workload side of things. It's just long hours, but yeah, a lot of the local population, when the school reopening got delayed because everyone just said, oh, great, we don't need to go home again for 2 weeks, and they're still out of town. Which, I mean, is great for me getting some sort of a rest, but we don't make any money doing that happens either.
Yeah, that's the thing with the COOF. It's knocked everything out of whack. Either there's way more business coming through most businesses, especially small businesses like ours, than there is normally, or there's way less, and at times it can be spiky due to the nature of lockdowns. So we don't have a consistent workflow where we can plan the rest of our lives around it. We got to just roll with the punches as they come.
Yep.
And unfortunately, if you're in your scenario, that's got to be pretty scary sometimes, where you don't know if you're going to make any money.
Yeah,
I would rather be overworked than underworked.
Broke even. So yeah, that's life.
I've complained about my week enough. We can move on to the email that we should have read last week.
We does has email. Oh, do the thing because I'm fighting a boss.
I'm looking for it because I just suddenly got attacked by 4 mobs. So
I hate this boss. There, he's dead.
Maybe if I just spam heals on myself the entire time, I'll be fine. Or will I run out of mana first? We'll see. So this email is from Serathus, and he writes, "Dear, no excuses. So it has come to this. I have walked to the end, got the 670 Poetics gear. I presume he means 570 Tomestone gear. My crafters and gatherers have the level 90 high quality gear, and now I'm not sure what else to do. Probably going to try Savages with my FC, farm scripts to buy the folklore tomes, and maybe finish the Hildebrand quest from ARR. Also, a friend of mine bought me Elderborn, best described as Dark Messiah of Kick and Kick, but the 80s metal edition. No magic, just a barbarian in chainmail underwear kicking undead off cliffs. Yeah, the kick move is just a tiny bit overpowered in the cliffside environs, and the enemy variety is severely limited to undead, shield undead, javelin undead, and elite undead with a lava scorpion every now and then. Granted, I've just finished the first zone in the cliffside tomb. The upcoming city might have more variety. And I got myself Ready or Not, as it just came out to early access. Almost bought it when I remembered that I have, in fact, kickstarted this game. For all intents and purposes, Ready or Not is SWAT 5. Still very early in the access, a whole lot of features seem to be missing or not working. The built-in voice chat is ridiculously quiet, but it seems to be better than Ground Branch, the other SWAT spiritual successor. And lastly, in the previous email, I made a typo. It's ESG score, not EGS. Environmental Societal Governance. To put simply, it's the corporate woke credit score. Literally credit, because based on this number is how corps get funding from BlackRock. So rejoice, Ari, your 401k, if you have one, is contributing to the growing numbers of diversity commissars across the board. Buy guns and ammo.
And now I'm thinking of all these 40k commissars running around.
So
that might be preferable, actually.
I do not have a 401k, Serathus. In fact, I don't have much of any benefits. In fact, I have none working at my job because I'm effectively the only person operating the job at this point. There are a grand total of 2.5 employees that are still on the scheduled payroll. So we don't have the ability to pay into anybody's 401k. It just ain't gonna happen for the size of business we run.
Yeah, that tends to be a common thread for small family businesses.
Yeah, the thing about starting a small family business is all those extra benefits like expensive good health care that you don't go, get the cheapest thing from the Obamacare website just to say your company offers it. So you don't get, dinged on your taxes, your 401ks, your retirement plans, your any type of pension like anything. All that stuff is not for people that want to strike out on their own as entrepreneurs or as small business owners.
That stuff comes later, once you're already successful.
Yeah, that stuff comes once you reach a critical mass and you can afford it. Like we as small business owners, we're worrying into how our financials are going to look at the end of the quarter, whether we're going to still be in the black or not. So we don't have the resources to put up stuff like a 401k. And I don't think you have to worry about buy guns and ammo. The opossum buys enough for everybody in a 20-block radius around us.
Jeez.
So, and good luck buying ammo. He hasn't bought ammo lately because you still can't find it.
Is this just preppers going nuts again, or is it just a shortage?
It's just been a shortage of ammo for going on a year and some change now.
All right.
Because remember the Summer of Peace?
Yes.
2020. All of a sudden, a whole lot of people that were anti-gun weren't anti-gun anymore. And so all the current supply and all the back supply of ammo got bought.
Well, it's not only just that either. It's also that the part of that political faction who remain anti-gun are the ones that can afford to purchase security, and so they have continued to basically make it difficult to purchase ammo because they can't regulate guns. So they just regulate ammo imports instead.
Yeah, governments are getting in the way everywhere with it. And any ammo producer or gun manufacturer that is in a not deep red area needs to move. And some of them are, I think, actually. They're moving towards the Midwest. But yeah, got plenty of that for the inevitable world falling apart. It'll get there in my lifetime. Just what stage it'll get to, how quickly, is the only real question. Don't know if we'll get to the part where the guns and ammo become standard equipment for day-to-day life. But we'll see. For his other two games, I haven't played either one or even really looked at them.
Sadly, no, but honestly, playing the Barbarian and kicking zombies off cliffs does sound like fun.
Let's see, Elderborn. It has a edition called Metal AF Edition.
Okay.
It's yeah, you're a strut walking big barbarian in first person, kicking dudes around and slashing them. I mean, it looks cool.
Yeah,
looks like a standard first person testosterone overdose game, but it looks cool.
Sometimes that's exactly what you really.
Once in a while, it can
Every
be
now
fun.
and again, yeah.
Xerathos loves stuff that's for boomers.
Yeah, and this just screams modern boomer game. So yeah, Ready or Not, I haven't. I feel like I've heard the name, but it's not drawing any.
Yeah, I think I've heard the
pictures.
name, but that's about it.
Yeah. Oh, this. Yeah, it's. I can't tell how anything about these type of tactical shooter games because I don't play them.
Yeah. Tactical shooters have their niche audience, but they're really just not for me.
Yeah, I haven't ever really got a whole lot of interest in them because while it does facilitate small group play, you need a whole squad to really get the most out of them, I feel.
Yeah, and honestly, I prefer my shooters on the silly side.
I've never even attempted to play one. I did watch one of my friends playing Rainbow Six once, but I didn't understand anything that was taking place.
I watched someone playing Arma, Arma 2 particularly at one point, because when does the fun start?
Yeah,
Are you having fun yet? Because there's nothing fun happening.
I've never actually seen what Arma looks like when it's played as Arma, because my flatmate who played Arma a lot always played the Battle Royale mod, which was like before Battle Royales became a thing.
It's what became PUBG.
Arma mod. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a Battle Royale mod, and I think there was another one which became Rust. Or something similar. Yeah, there's a lot of mods out there for Arma which do all sorts of interesting. Base game is. Yeah. Not really my thing.
Yep. So, thank you for the email, Serathos. Is there any more to it that I've just brain farted on?
Beyond that, it's what to do after you've done everything in Final Fantasy. I mean, I haven't been able to play as much, so salty.
And me and Vol haven't been playing consistently since ARR, so
yeah.
Well, since Heavensward for him.
Like, there's plenty of stuff to do. Like you've already hit on one, which is go do the Hildebrand quests.
Yeah, there's quests and raids and stuff all over the place that we haven't done.
Yep.
I don't know where Serathos is at in his optional content grind, but there seems to be an awful lot of it for you to be caught up. So.
Yeah, like we hit another one earlier today, which was learn how to play Verminion.
Yeah, I still haven't.
Go learn how to play Mahjong.
I can't even win against the easiest Mahjong opponent.
I have not even done the first quest.
I completely lose track of what I'm trying to do all of the time.
Yeah. The only Mahjong I've ever actually played is Mahjong Solitaire.
Which isn't Mahjong in
Which isn't Mahjong.
Yeah, there's no relationship between it except tiles are used.
No.
Was very good.
The other exposure to Mahjong is an old Jackie Chan movie about Drunken Fist. Jackie Chan's father was yelling at his wife to stop playing mahjong and gambling away all their money, but every time she turned up, she just lost all her money again.
Oh, I was very, very good at Mahjong for that stint where I had to get good at it for Yakuza. And all of that knowledge is just dribbled out of my brain, and what's left is a vague haze of how to play.
There be tiles, you do things with them.
You have to look at what's been played and try and make the right hands. And in Yakuza, it's an extra pain in the butt because you got to sit there and make specific hands for Chivos and titles.
Yeah.
And some hands are just dumb. Like, that's the thing about Mahjong. Some hands are like, get, all of the wins and then this sequence of this thing, and it counts as a special hand.
Sounds like an enormous headache for no reason.
I mean, you get a ton of points for it, but it's like somebody just put it in the rulebook because he had that hand one time and felt gypped because he thought it was a cool hand.
Okay. It sounds like optional rules Uno then.
Yeah, there are so many weird special combinations of hands that aren't universally used either. It depends on which variant of Mahjong you play and which rules that the particular game is using, which hands are valid. And not to mention the consistent hands and learning how to count them out and pace it right is incredibly difficult. And learning when to call Roan, or just mashing it whenever you can because the computer is... No. You're just giving up because the computer's better than you and you just need to get lucky.
Oh dear. Like they actually put that game into Final Fantasies just because of why.
Yeah, it's got a whole tournament structure thing as well and everything.
Yeah, just like Verminion.
I don't know if anybody uses it or not. It seems like there might be the skill level required might be too high for it to be very popular.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's I don't want to think about Mahjong.
Probably a few big brains out there who really get into it, but yeah. All right. What else is there? Like, there's always hidden dungeons. There's a couple of those around going and getting your Savage Trial mounts from the previous expansions. I just like doing some of those fights because it's fun trying to figure out how to do them solo.
Yeah. And we're not pushing in-game at all, so our knowledge of current stuff is... we haven't even done the current normal raid tier. It's on the to-do list along with a billion other things.
Yeah.
But it's just not a priority.
There's so much stuff to do in the game, it can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah, so we have... all of our time in the game is dedicated to, leveling alts, or working on our crafting, or doing some older content that we haven't done before, and watching people die to Red Girl over and over again.
Dying to Red Girl.
Well, it's inevitable, really.
Yeah, like, even if my brain's turned on 100%, I'm probably going to die at least once during that fight. But, yeah, it's there's just a whole lot of stuff. It's had many years to accumulate MMO content bloat, and so we have all of that to chew through.
Because they don't immediately remove it from relevance at the moment.
That's the thing.
They do another expansion.
Because even though some of it is bloat, it doesn't really feel like bloat because it can all be relevant. Not like things like strongholds being or garrisons, I should say, being the prime example. It's just gone at the end of the expansion.
I thought that they'd learned that lesson when they made guild halls, which seemed like not guild halls, the class order halls, because that seemed like something that you could conceivably carry on.
Yeah,
because it wasn't located in some random irrelevant location that you're not ever going to go to again, the way the garrisons were.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh well, obviously this is supposed to be evergreen, right?
Yeah, no. You could just keep going back to it, but. No.
It wasn't supposed to be evergreen. They just ditched it like they do with everything else at the end of the expansion.
And that's WoW's biggest problem above everything else. Redundant content.
Yeah. Most
Well, I
of the
think
time,
their biggest problem is that they don't learn lessons.
Well, yeah, okay. With the game
Yeah.
itself, not with the team behind it.
yeah, and tangentially related, they don't admit they're wrong ever.
Ever.
Internally, they apparently don't even admit they're wrong. From if the rumors are to be believed, they plug in their ears anytime anybody mentions Final Fantasy.
You're not allowed to say anything at Blizzard that could be construed as negative.
Yeah,
That's literally the way they operate, is that you aren't allowed to be negative, and being negative means issuing any criticism of any idea at all under any circumstances.
yeah.
That's how things get done.
The inevitable somebody goes, yeah, but that's really dumb, doesn't happen anymore at Blizzard.
It needs to. Like, a lot.
Yeah. It needs to happen at every company, anywhere.
You need to have the guy who points out things that are dumb.
Yeah, it's even if you're, self-employed, hire a guy who's a layman whose job is to stop and put his paper down and go, "You said what? That's a really stupid idea." If you go off the rails,
an 8-year-old child.
This is like the arch villain thing.
Yeah, employ an 8-year-old child.
You need to run all your plans by a completely normal child.
Yes.
So that all of the obvious things that you didn't see because your head was lodged in your backside can be pointed out to you.
Yeah. This is why, even though the opossum drives me up the wall, the opossum is useful in that he is a second voice in the office to stop me from doing something stupid.
Who stops him doing something stupid?
Oh, I've stopped him way more than he has stopped me, but... But he is still a second voice and a second pair of eyes to look at what I'm doing. Like, can you look over this PO before I send it out? Even if I guarantee he's probably not going to look at it real close. It makes me feel a lot better that a second pair of eyes has touched it.
Yep. Sometimes that's what you really need, is just a second opinion.
Yeah, or just like, hey, you got the date wrong.
Yeah. That's why proofreading is a thing.
Is that where our PO numbers are really at? Stuff like that is helpful.
Echo chambers are not.
Oh, man.
Well, yeah. I think an echo chamber would be an improvement over what they've got at Blizzard. What they've got is a climate of fear and denial.
Yeah.
Where people either are too afraid to say things, or they simply can't see them because being able to see them would be counterproductive to your career.
Yeah. Anyone with a spine or vision is long gone.
You don't want to criticize somebody who's got control over your advancement prospects, because they're all divas.
Even if they are all blithering idiots.
Yeah. Well, but to Cerithus's email, what do we do in Final Fantasy now that we've hit 90? We mostly level alts and just do roulettes and random content whenever people want to do something they haven't done before.
Yeah, well, I'm not really dedicated to advancing any particular goal because I'm not going to play Savage. Like most of the time, I'm either leveling alternate jobs or I'm progressing old relic weapon chains. Those are my two fallback bulk time sinks.
Going and doing Eureka.
Yeah, but there's several expansions now, so you don't need to do that one.
Yeah, if you want to do all the relics, you have to eventually, but you can go do boss jobs.
Yeah, but you say, "Oh, do all the relics." Are you contemplating exactly how much content that represents?
That is a lot of content.
Do all the relics, but each one of those is hundreds of hours of ARR, hundreds of hours of Heavensward, hundreds of hours worth of Stormblood and Shadowbringers. Like,
chewing my way slowly through the Astrologian Heavensward one.
And for a lot of them, there's one for every class. Not for every class, but for most of them, there are many different relic weapons to collect.
So many. So if you're absolutely hurting for something to do, there you go. Alternately, you could just put the game down for a couple of months and come back to it later. There's no harm in doing that either.
But he's talking about maybe pushing Savage, so...
Well, you could do that.
He's playing in a different tier at the end game than we are. Like, me and Vol are 90, but we barely have any Tombstone gear.
Yep.
Yeah, I have enough that I could finish off doing the low end Tombstone gear for all of my my warrior slots. Like, I could finish it. if I was so inclined.
Like I grabbed all the accessories, and I'm slowly building up my astrologium, but it's a slow going process.
Yeah,
So-
I just not. I'm not in a hurry because I know that I'm not going to be on the cutting edge or anything. So there's no real reason to hurry.
Yeah,
There's so much other stuff to do because I haven't leveled all the classes. I like playing a lot of different ones.
yeah, and it's so much easier to take the game casually and feels better with our current workloads. To
Yeah.
just log on and go play our samurai or whatever for a little bit.
That's another good thing.
One of the real strengths of the game is that it's very friendly to that type of behavior in a way that World of Warcraft's really not. Like,
Yeah,
what can you really do in the evening of World of Warcraft? Like, what they want you to do is to just do your dailies.
Log on, you pleb.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have alt characters, but due to the way progression tracking works in WoW, it's never really feels good as to level. It feels good to level an alt in Final Fantasy because it's all on one character and your progression's very obviously all tied to that character. But in WoW,
there's a lot of cross-applicable things as well. Like if you got all this gear for one character, there's odds on there's another job on that character that you can use that gear again if you happen to be leveling that concurrently.
Yeah,
and you can set micro goals for yourself. Like I want to get all of my X type of classes to this level because I need to get bag space.
Yeah, all that. But you never really feel pressured to log on and do content every day. You can just plod along at your own pace.
Oh yeah, I didn't sign on until today. I got on this morning, and for the couple hours we played right before the show.
Yeah,
and I suppose it's interesting. I don't know what it is about it, but like there's not really that much content. Like there's 3 dungeons in the expert roulette, and yet I don't get bored of them. Like I still enjoy doing them every time. And I'm sort of curious as to why that is, because that's like World of Warcraft often has more dungeons at max level, but I didn't like doing them at all. I just didn't want to do them. Period.
Yeah,
Like give me something else to do, please.
Hugging in Final Fantasy seems to hurt more than in WoW because the content requires a bit more brain power, and you can when someone goes full retard, they really can throw a monkey wrench in a group.
Yeah.
But I think the average group quality is a lot higher.
Yeah, because people are actually paying attention. They're not just in there and they don't just activate autopilot and off they go.
Like, and the content is more likely to punch your face in Final Fantasy than it is in WoW if you have somebody who's just consistently doing things wrong. But generally speaking, that seems to have meant that World of Warcraft is generally people are crappy at it. If they aren't playing like high-end Mythic Plus keys or something where they have to refine their gameplay to an autistic level, then they're going to suck at the game typically. And the people who don't suck at the game style and the pressure that the game applies to you to do things in a certain way cordons those people who are skilled off into that type of play. People who might have the capacity to play tolerable good, even if they don't play especially well like me, they don't want to mingle with the autists and they also don't want to mingle with the retards. And there's no other category in World of Warcraft. But in Final Fantasy, pretty much everybody wants to perform at a tolerable level, because not performing at a tolerable level, even if you can get away with it, is kind of embarrassing. And nobody wants to be that guy. Well, the bulk of the population don't want to be that guy. And there's a sort of an ethos of wanting to put distance between yourself and the stereotypical ex-WoW retard as possible.
Yeah.
Because there's a consciousness of, like, generally speaking, people don't look down on others as much in FF as they do in World of Warcraft, but people, since the exodus from WoW, there's sort of like a self-consciousness about, we've now got a reputation to uphold. So people tend to try and play well as well, because they want to set a good example for new people and to also live up to the hype.
Which for the most part is a good thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen I haven't seen very much toxicity at all, generally speaking, in
Yeah.
groups. It's just not a thing. It's not a thing in Final Fantasy. Occasionally, you might see someone get a bit strident in an alliance raid when somebody has just done something absolutely boneheaded or is holding up 23 other people because they're refusing to do something correctly. But usually it's just that they've got a technical problem with their computer or they're ignorant on what to do, and once they understand, they're willing to do it, and then everybody just lets it go.
Yeah.
There's very little grudge holding. There's almost no group dropping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I remember playing WoW. You'd pug a dungeon, but even if one person died, the group would fall apart.
The only instance of grudge holding I can remember is when our group got murdered in that one near raid.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was a very special circumstance where premeditated murder had been committed and we were looking for an opportunity for revenge.
Yeah, that's just called shenanigans.
We were at each other's throats too at the beginning of that one, but the being murdered by another group really solidified the community. I feel built a sense of camaraderie.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like a shared enemy to pull people together.
At that point, pride was just on the line. Yeah, by and large, all my experiences with random people in Final Fantasy, very good ones. You get the occasional person who's a bit, but it's nothing on the level of WoW.
The thing that's really stood out to me is just that I haven't seen anybody rage quit groups.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
This does not happen.
And it's not like it's specially punitive to people who do that. People just don't. They would rather progress with the group and get the thing done. And then the thing with that is that it's auto-catalytic because everybody gets better for the experience, generally speaking. When you don't just quit because somebody's bad, then people are sort of like, I don't want to say forced because it implies that there's an element of unwilling coercion, but yes, they are forced by the continued attempts to improve their game.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a simple matter of someone pointing something out to you and you can improve.
Yeah, and most people do seem to be willing to listen. Yeah. I know nobody wants to be that guy in this game.
Anyway, we've banged that drum enough. Although we don't have a whole lot in the way of news.
Yeah, because nothing's happened yet. We're in that start of the year doldrums where nobody really wants to do anything big in the games industry because nobody's got any money to spend on it.
Yeah, like a lot of my consciousness of news of this week has been taken up by the G4 TV stuff, and it's nothing new. It's like revive an old property, go ultra woke, start yelling at your own audience, and go broke.
Why does nobody ever learn that this doesn't end well for anyone?
I don't know why.
And they drug poor Gerard the Completionist on there to just tank his reputation.
Yeah.
Well, he should have known better, to be quite blunt.
Yeah,
everybody should by now.
Yeah, it's all on him, but that was he was a neutral party, aside from his shenanigans with Greg. But seeing him on there, I'm like, well, yep, he's gone.
Yeah. I get it. I wasn't
watching him to begin with, but I knew who he was.
Yeah. No, I get it. A lot of people, when they saw that it was starting back up and thinking, okay, great, we can actually talk about video games in on a official channel of some description again.
Well, it wasn't like that before. It was basically the Olivia Munn show.
It was the Olivia Munn show, exactly.
The show was not about games, it was about her boobs. Like, yes. That was it.
Yeah, like,
it didn't even pretend otherwise.
Did you watch Attack of the Show back in the day? Like, they're out there all complaining about misogynies now, but it used to be, Olivia Munn deep throating sausages.
Wait, what?
I'm not kidding.
She's like one of the original Big E girls.
She's the original, as I understand it. But yeah,
they would do this on live TV as the TV show.
Yeah, and they wondered why it got cancelled, I suppose.
Well, it didn't get cancelled because of that. It got cancelled because nobody wanted to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got cancelled because nobody cared about... Number one, nobody cared about TV anymore because their audience is very tech-savvy and was already on the internet way before everybody else.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the possibility of seeing a bit of boobage, then people wouldn't have watched it in the first place, because people have better ways of getting their gaming news.
Like, I remember back when G4 was still young, and it was on the TV, I would turn it on occasionally, and I would watch, like, they had a show about cheats and secrets in video games, and that's how I found out about the Lincoln quest line, I think, in World of Warcraft.
Oh, nice.
But it's that kind of stuff just became irrelevant later, and the audience that would naturally be drawn to a show like that I'll just go look it up online.
Yeah. As for the
shelf life of that type of show was very, very short.
Yeah. As for getting your news, like, people have been doing for the last 10 years now. No one's trusted the mainstream games news for a long time now. They've all got their alternate means of getting it, be it YouTubers, direct from the source, whatever. So it's really just not required to have that centralized show anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know if the mainstream gaming news has realized that everybody only views their content through the filter of someone else on YouTube. Like, nobody consumes that content directly anymore.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, like, IGN reviews or whatever get the view numbers they do, but I imagine most people don't watch, like, IGN or GameSpot reviews. They go to their preferred source of information and get their information about a game from that, or the happenings in the industry. They have their preferred website, even if they're, no matter which side of the culture where they're on.
Well, I think
they're going to get it from there.
I think a significant number of people simply aren't interested in any game until a streamer they like is playing it. Like,
yeah.
they don't care. They want to see somebody have fun playing this, or at least appear to have fun playing this, before they're interested in a buy-in, if they're even interested then. Like, there's no reason to rely on a review if you can watch whether somebody has fun or not in real time. It's like a vastly superior substitute for the review in a lot of people's thinking. It is possible that there will be that historically there may have been reviewers who had broader perspective or better understanding of certain technical things or what have you, but that really doesn't apply anymore. Like, most of the people that work in that industry, they're not good at anything. Like, the old hands have all gone to work for other publications now because most of them were only ever in gaming because it was the only branch of journalism they could break into.
Yeah, either that or they've gone off and formed their own YouTube channel.
Yeah, they've a lot of them just have adapted to the times, and then you've got people like Schreier who just go to Bloomberg instead because they always intended to go there. They don't give a toss about games.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's just a specialization which allows them to move within that particular sector.
Yeah, so the whole thing basically went exactly how anyone who knows anything about the games news industry told them it was going to go. Sadly, I wish it hadn't been gone quite so predictably. I would have liked it just to fail rather than having the meltdown and the screaming match with the fans.
No, I think that the screaming match with the fans has utility because it allows everybody to see what type of person they are.
Yes.
And that may not be a nice thing. It may shatter some illusions for some people, but they are illusions that need to be shattered. They are not your friends. They do not care about you, and they do not even love the things that you love. They are there for a paycheck.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was under any such illusion this time around.
Yeah, but if anything, it's cathartic because you know that if they are throwing a tantrum, they are not actually managing to upset anybody but themselves. Everybody else is just laughing at them.
They're going to sink their own careers, and all we'll do is sit back and laugh.
People will drink their tears and laugh.
Yeah,
they're not going to win in the end. It doesn't matter what they think of their customers. The audience, they hold the power here. They will lose their jobs if they show no utility for their paymasters, and they don't have any utility anymore. They're a bunch of has-beens, a breed that are no longer necessary.
But anyway, what else we got? We have anything?
Final Fantasy XIV is going to be sold again. The ban on sales is ending.
Hooray! Sort of.
So there'll be another influx.
Hooray!
And the queues which have dropped will now go back up.
No, I was just able to start getting back into the game in reasonable time periods.
Yeah, when I logged on this morning, there were only 44 people in queue.
Yeah, I think I only had 35 in what should have been a peak time.
But that's a very marked change. I saw the message that was sent out saying that they're going to roll out the Oceania servers early.
Yes.
And it seemed like it was around that time that suddenly the queues cut by about 90%. So maybe they just deployed a whole bunch of hardware to bolster their handling of the queues.
Yeah. Something I think changed. Because it happened that quick.
Well, the holidays did just end as well, so it's hard to tell the balance there.
Yeah, you'd still get the crowds during Prime, though. Prime time.
But it's weekend.
Yeah, it's the weekend today.
Yeah. Oh, right. Weekends exist.
So, I don't know how much of it is one or the other. It could be both, and it could be weighted towards one more or the other. But it's really hard to tell from the statement they gave how much is one thing.
Well, it's good. I can play again now.
At any rate, the Oceania data center is opening on January the 25th, 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yes.
I'm not going to make the leap just yet because there was nobody to play with there for me. Although I would like to go there because I want to experience what it feels like to actually play the game properly instead of play it by effectively issuing voice commands and waiting for my character to obey.
Yeah. It's a bit tiresome.
Once they've got their data center bridging technology hammered out so that I'm not banned from ever playing with anybody who's not on the Oceania data center, then it will basically be a gimme.
Yeah.
Provided that it actually works as advertised. Although it is very tempting because of the huge bonuses that you typically get when going to a new server.
Yeah, I'm wondering actually just how big the incentives they're going to offer this time around.
I don't know.
For transferring to new worlds, it's free to do. You get double EXP for 90 days up to level 80. You get 10 gold chocobo feathers, and if you have a private estate or apartment, you get compensated for anything that's in there.
Those chocobo feathers are sort of thing you only usually get through Recruit a Friend.
Yeah, there's only Recruit a Friend and server bonuses like this are the only ways that you can actually procure them, I believe.
Yes, and there's a few specialist bits of stuff you can.
Yeah, they're only accessible by that means now. Often stuff that's been removed from the game or has never been publicly available.
Yeah, like the 2-seater chocobo man. It's only available.
Yeah. But yeah, so I really want to do it, but I don't want to give up being able to play with other people just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if say we were to follow you and Fern would be good to go and great off now. But
and you would get to see what we've been going through all this time.
Yeah, well, that may be cathartic. It's not exactly an enticing proposition.
Yeah.
We would effectively just flip.
But doing so on a temporary basis, just for the span of a dungeon or whatever, is much more practical. And they have a good world visit system that's already implemented, but they have said that they are definitely launching a travel system to allow you to go between the data centers, and they hope to get it out in 6.1x, but that probably won't work between regions yet, but they're working on a region one. Like currently you can transfer between worlds on the same data center. In 6.1x you'll be able to transfer between data centers in the same region, and the ultimate goal is to have cross-region servers be able to be traveled between as well. But the technology for that just doesn't exist yet. They haven't done the coding for it yet. They want to get there, but they've got to roll this out step by step.
Yeah, so that's
good news.
That's where we're at with Final Fantasy.
They haven't implemented anything, but from what they've said in previous live letters, they have the framework to switch on, in theory, the ability to go from region to region live in the game, but it's basically untested. Like they don't know if it's going to cause everything to explode as soon as people do, or whether it will cause strange player behavior or whatever, like people deciding to crash some other regions, worlds and make it their own from off-site or something for no good reason or whatever. So there's a lot of barbs in there, but I'm really looking forward to it because it's a live proposition. It's something they're really keen on, and then that because I've never been able to really play an MMO as intended.
Yeah,
it's just not been a thing. Like the World of Warcraft Oceania servers were rubbish.
they were based in. Actually, where were they based? They weren't based in Australia, that's for sure.
No, and there were a lot of them, a lot of MMOs I played in the past that had Oceania servers. They were always like, oh, well, it's not in Oceania, but we optimized it for better ping, which, would shave maybe 10 milliseconds off.
If you're lucky.
So you went down from 160 to 150. So, yeah, I hope that this performs well. I don't know where the physical location is, but I've got high hopes simply because the behavior of the Final Fantasy team has been indicative of people who genuinely want their players to have a great experience, as opposed to wanting their players to, at best, shut up.
Shut up, give us your money, and go away.
Yeah, it seems like they care about their product, and Yoshi P reflects this by, basically, he treats this game as his magnum opus. Like, the game reflects him, his life's work. Everything that he has worked on in his career, he wants the game to reflect. So anything that is bad, he takes as a personal indictment and wants to fix it.
Great. Means that someone actually cares.
Yes, unlike the likes of Eon Hazakostas, for instance, who is ex-legal, I believe. Used to work as a lawyer for the feds or something, and the thing that's characteristic about Eon's dark reign over World of Warcraft, since he basically took control of so many of the systems, is that it has become increasingly looter shootery.
Eck.
Like that gameplay loop of just trying to enslave people to the one-armed bandit type of gameplay systems.
Yep.
That really took off under him, and it seems like that's the direction that he wants World of Warcraft to go. And then you've got hacks like Denusa trying to take over the lore from Metzen and have turned it into this absolute cluster F that makes no sense. Like, I don't know if either of you guys have been following the development of World of Warcraft lore, but it has gone to Tartarus in a handbasket. It is completely absurd now.
Yeah, apparently Sylvanas is alive and basically completely undermined her own story arc.
Well, it's totally imploded. There's nothing that happened in the past makes sense. Everybody has been absolved of their guilt, and they have made this new enemy that nobody cares about in the jailer the grand mastermind behind literally everything that has ever taken place. I know Bellula made a bunch of arguments that this is about poor framing, not about poor writing, but no, it's about poor writing.
It's both.
It's poor writing.
Poor writing.
Like the framing is only bad because the writing is atrocious and there's nothing good to frame.
Yes.
Like there's no genuine way you can make this work, because the argument that he expounded on in one of his videos that I saw was that, oh well, what we are seeing from our point of view, and he's not actually playing apologist for it. I'm making it sound like he is, but he's not. He hates it as well. He's just playing devil's advocate. But what he expanded on his theory that, oh well, we're basically seeing the one successful route of 1,000 failed plans that the jailer has allegedly conducted over time. But to us, it makes it look like he's a genius because that's the only part that we see, the only part the writers have shown to us. So as they have framed this type of character so badly that it makes him look like an unrealistic genius, and since he's just shown up on the scene, nobody gives a toss about him and so on. Like all of that's perfectly valid, but the fact is that they just effed up the story
completely.
On the ground, where you're standing looking up at what's going on, they effed up the story. Everything that went before, they have taken it and taken a big steaming dump on it and then presented it to the player. All of the stuff that Metzen worked on in his years of world building, like I'm I've always been very lukewarm on WoW lore and WoW world building, but under Metzen, it wasn't apocalyptically bad.
No,
but
it was corny, but not bad.
Danusa's effort to try and tell a Final Fantasy story in World of Warcraft framing has been a complete atrocity of narrative structure.
Yes.
Because that's what he thinks. He's an auteur writer who can tell a really deep story full of intrigue and emotional development and stuff, but he's using World of Warcraft's framing. And I don't ever get the impression Metzen wanted that. Like, he seemed to be more interested in building a sandbox full of 1,000 little story threads, like little things happening all over the world where you weren't really someone important, but you were this guy who would run across a thing and that you would help resolve.
Yeah.
Whereas it has slid further and further with his departure especially, but even before that it has slid further and further as new writers came on board in the direction of you being a chosen one of sorts. But you are not the warrior of light in World of Warcraft. You are not a person in that setting. You're just some schmuck. And that shows up when you converse with characters that you... Like, how much time has passed in universe from the launch of World of Warcraft to current day?
10 years or so.
So you've known Jaina for 10 years, but she doesn't know your name.
Yeah,
she's never met you before. You're just this guy. So it doesn't make sense to try and make you the chosen one, because that implies you've been the chosen one for 10 years, but nobody gives enough of a toss to be able to remember your name. Whereas everybody that you meet in FF remembers you, and they remember your name, and they show up years later after you personally as the player have forgotten them, but they haven't forgotten you because of the mark you left on their life, and so on and so forth. That doesn't happen in World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft wasn't built for that. It's not a narrative about the champion. It's a narrative about the world of Azeroth.
Yeah.
So, of course, what you do is you completely take your leave of Azeroth and everything related to it. You go to some parallel death dimension, and then you do a bunch of shenanigans there in service of a bunch of people you've never met and don't care about in order to defeat a guy you've never met and don't care about. Like, what a mess. What an absolute mess. And at the top of the pyramid, you've got our boy Bobby trying to squeeze a couple extra dollars out.
It's just an absolute disaster.
I'm really interested in World of Warcraft for one particular reason, and that's to see in what fashion will they either recover or crash and burn. Because if Bobby gets sacked because of his myriad scandals, which seems really unlikely because he's got that much power, and somebody who's a visionary comes in, absolutely slashes and burns the leadership of World of Warcraft and reinstates somebody who actually loves it, then you could see a recovery, because there's just that much emotional investment that people have in World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not I could ever go back, but I know that there's a lot of people that could be dragged back there because they loved it for so long. And in the history of World of Warcraft, there's been a lot to like and a lot of experiences that are irreplaceable. Memories and stories which you can't ever let go of because they are part of, you know, your life growing up, being a player of the game at the time. And that, for a lot of people, it's just an important part of their lives. And you can pull people back if you can show that you love the world as much as they do. But instead, will it disappear in an explosion of drama and scandal and cynical cash grabbing? Will it die with a whimper as it rots away under the weight of its own diseased flesh? Or will it recover? Really interested to see which way it'll go. I don't even know what timescale it will take place on. Yeah. But they seem to be cutting it pretty close to the edge when they managed to have the biggest scandal in the games industry in recent memory coupled directly to the Endwalker release.
Yeah.
Like, you could not have timed your own suicide better.
That was just the perfect storm of disaster. But it was a perfect storm for Final Fantasy as well.
Yeah, I know Final Fantasy also has a lot to live up to. They've now got several patches worth of content to keep all these new people interested. And then it's not Endwalker that's important, it's the follow-up to Endwalker that will determine the future of Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah. We know that they intend on keeping supporting the game now that the story's over. Are they going to start a new story, or are they just going to kind of potter around a bit until Final Fantasy XVI comes in?
So basically, we need Yoshi P to not die of nicotine poisoning before he manages to crap out another expansion. Because honestly, this project lives and dies with him.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's managed to raise anybody who loves the game as much as him, who could possibly be his successor if anything should happen to him. There are people on the team who do love the game he does, like the composer is an obvious man there, Soken.
Yeah, provided he doesn't drop dead.
Someone who can really take the reins the way that Yoshi P did when he revived the project. Don't know what that person looks like. Don't know if there's anybody who can do it. So don't die, Yoshi P. We need you. And Soken's already fought off the Grim Reaper once. He'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm more worried about Keiko jumping up and strangling him at this point.
Or possibly dying of oxygen deprivation due to sheer laughter.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Like, I'm going to keep an eye out for Final Fantasy 16 because, yeah, Yoshi P is at the head of that one as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing it. It's got an interesting look to it. I'm not nearly so interested in Stranger in Paradise or whatever it's called.
No.
Because it looks like Final Fantasy that's been given a coat of Dark Souls paint and a whole bunch of really cringe dialogue about killing Chaos. So
Chaos! Chaos! That was the worst trailer. Apparently, yeah. Did we... I don't remember which trailer they actually showed at that E3. Was that the English one or the Japanese one?
I don't remember either. E3 was such a non-event.
Yeah, because the Japanese one, they prattle on about Chaos. They trimmed it all back for English. Yeah, I can't remember which one we saw now. Because I know there was one that prattled on about Chaos a lot.
Some trailers are just begging for a supercut.
Yeah. Anywho, do we have any other bits of newslets to talk about?
We do, but there ain't a whole... Well, there's one... I really don't want to go into it, because there ain't any meat to it. It's just Phil Spencer is dumb.
Oh.
He often sticks his foot in his mouth. Like, people give him a lot more credit than I think he deserves, because the only thing that he really did was he stopped that department from being absolutely retarded. Like, he ended the era of TV spirits, but anybody with half a brain could have seen that era needed to come to an end. And he has inaugurated this new business strategy, which is an interesting strategy, but I have negative faith that it's not going to turn absolutely cynical the moment they can establish a confident foothold in the market. And I think we're coming up on that stage now, because the behavior of Microsoft relative to Sony in this sector has been pretty marked, in that Sony is spooling up PS4 production.
Yeah.
And Microsoft is ending Xbone production entirely.
There's still no reason to buy a PS5.
Yeah, I've not even been considering it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I don't use my PS4 all that much, and so there's not really any pressing need for me to have a PS5, because I've got like the latest console that has console games I actually want to play on. So yeah, they are. I mean, it's easy to sell me a console. Just put a fake game on it. So until somebody does that, no deal.
Yeah.
Like a PS5 which has sort of like an adaptation of FGO Arcade on it, and I'll be champing at the bit to get my hands on one of those consoles.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
That doesn't happen, then too bad. You'll just have to deal. Like, I don't know what consoles they're planning to bring out the new Extella game on, but you know, Switch is a strong candidate for that. I could play it on that. PS4, it might come out on PS4. I could play it on that. PC, it might come out on PC. But PC, both the Extellas did, so Extra might. But yeah, you can sell me a console. You just need to give it what is for me a killer app, which is what applies to most people.
What do they have? Like the Demon's Souls remake?
That's it. That's the only game that is not available elsewhere.
Yeah. Like, and I'm sure they're going to shoot for like an exclusive God of Boy, but the behavior of spooling up production on your last generation console suggests that dual platform releases for the previous and current generation are going to be the way that they are pushing in future, and that's probably in the design spec for everybody who wants to publish with them at present, is that you need to release both. Because they know that they can't meet demand with PS5 production. It's just not possible. Not with supply chains, raw materials, the economy being the way it is. They need, in order to maintain their position in the market, they need to take a real strong stand on that PS4 tech. And it's not a silly position. It's looks silly in light of the fact that they've got this new generation console, but it's been made clear, abundantly clear by Nintendo, that if your offerings are enough, you don't need to have Ninja hardware in order to carve out a space in the market. It's true that the Switch's space in the market is largely driven by handheld, but that doesn't stop a lot of people just treating it like a console.
Yeah, it's got the games people want to play on it, so that's where they go.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, what is there to look forward to this year in gaming that I'm actually waiting for? I'm waiting for Extra Record, Fate Extra Record, and then there's Sunbreak and what? I just don't follow most of these little indie games. Like, I'll be happy to play one if someone points one out to me that's really cool that I really like. But as far as anticipating things goes,
for the most part, I tend not to really anticipate indie games because half the time they just disappear into the ether.
Yeah, they'll go on. They might, if you're lucky, go on early access for a bit, and then they'll vanish. But
yeah, so it's just best to enjoy those as you come across them. But
I think most people are pinning all their hopes on Elden Ring.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of hype for that, and from what people have been saying so far from the beta, it's looking extremely promising. Yeah,
people have said impressive things, but it all requires to be proven in the real world, live on the final release.
Like, that's what matters.
Even if their beta is awesome, but the game has a game-breaking bug that crashes the game and deletes your save on the final boss, then it won't matter how good the rest of the game is.
Yeah.
And that sounds like hyperbole, but there have been games that do that in the past, so...
Yeah, and this is the era of the unfinished game where pre-ordering is stupid.
Do not pre-order. Do yourself a favor, do not pre-order. Yeah, I think that might be about it for the show then.
Oh, I didn't ever actually say what Phil Spencer said, that it was dumb.
But it is dumb. It's so unbelievably dumb.
I would love to be able to ban people from multiple networks where I play. So this group of people that I choose not to play with because I don't want to have to recreate... Or, hang on.
That's only half of it. That's only half
of it. I got the quote chopped up. Something I would love for us to be able to do, and this one is hard as an industry, is when somebody gets banned in one of our networks, is there a way for us to ban them across other networks? And he goes on to imply that if you're banned on Xbox, you should be banned from Steam and PSN and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, and he probably thinks that's a good idea because he hasn't thought about it for 5 minutes and probably doesn't play video games.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
But there's actually one comment down there I agree with, and that is, little Timmy gets hit under the collar once when he's 10 years old and says a naughty word. Little Timmy can't play video games for the rest of his life.
Yeah, maybe Spencer thinks that's a good idea because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
And this is why I keep saying he's an idiot and why I railed against people giving him more credit than he deserves. Because he's just a guy doing the obvious thing because they dug a deep, deep hole for themselves the previous generation. The PS4 wasn't an earth-shaking console.
Yep.
It was just better than the idiotic competition.
Yeah, after TV spurts, Sony was effectively handed their win in the PS4 generation.
Right, literally,
you can
on
see
stage.
With the PS5 shows that they're paying the price for that hubris now. They thought that they were the ones that won. No, the opponent lost. They didn't win.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
If Phil Spencer had only kept it to that second part where he's talking about a cross-platform ignore list, okay, I'd get behind that. But
no, I don't want. No,
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think anybody has any business mediating the games networks as a collective.
This is just a personal ignore list that you take with you.
Oh, if it's wholly personal.
Yeah, if that's all it was.
Wholly personal, and you. Well, I actually have one problem with that, is that these things don't stay that way once people start thinking about cross-network. Like, if you look at what happened during Gamergate.
Yep.
Yeah, the auto-ignore filters that people just put on.
and they would share these around, and then they would lie about what this thing represented in order to ensure that the people they didn't like could not be heard and could not participate in discussion.
Yeah.
It was used as a weapon. It was used as a mass weapon. And if you have a multiply compatible system that can be grafted into basically all gaming, and then you can sell that to a bunch of morons as like, oh, this is just a list of known National Socialist German Workers' Party supporters who hate Jews or whatever, and you sell that to a bunch of idiots who then all use it and sell it to their friends, suddenly you've divided the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrible idea for... I'll tell you the real solution. Man up. If somebody says a naughty word, you push the ignore button if you don't want to hear it, or you give harder than you got.
It's the meme of the cyberbullying, right? With the guy laughing, it's like, just turn it off.
Turn off the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
like there's our generation didn't have anybody coddling and cosseting us online.
Yeah.
Like, I was called all kinds of names for every ethnicity, race, gender, and whatever on Xbox Live as a kid, even though I was mostly not those things.
Yeah.
It's just what it was. People are people.
You got called autistic when attempting to fight Rama.
Yeah, like you get called all kinds of things. It's just what anonymity does to people. It's the nature of an anonymous platform.
Yeah, hitch up your pants and just get on with it.
Well, you see, that's the thing that they don't like, and Microsoft doesn't like that just as much as everyone else. What he's actually driving at is not... He doesn't care about universal ignore lists, so I don't think he actually cares about universal banning either. What he cares about is the end of anonymity.
Yes.
Because anonymity, like, you can attach a whole bunch of theorizing about what the globalists plan to do with the internet if you can remove anonymity and social credit scores, etc., etc., etc. But you don't need any of that, because if you are no longer anonymous, if your identity is tied across all platforms, that makes the collected metrics that they will sell infinitely more valuable. Because now they can get you on every platform instead of just their own. They can track your behavior and sell it across every platform except not just their own. So that is basically what he is doing is he's trying to create additional value for their metrics. He does not care about your experience.
Yep. That's all it comes down to in the end is money. Oh, I've made terrible mistakes. Game is not being nice to me. Actually, I'm trying out a new character too, and it's probably not the best time to be doing this.
Alrighty. I think that pretty much covers the news.
There was one thing I wanted to ask about, which I don't know if either of you know anything about it or have heard anything about it. Was the port of Monster Hunter Rise to PC successful?
I've actually
Did they manage to do it without... Did they manage to do anything without clowning it up? Like, I don't know if you've heard any chatter about it. I don't know if either of you are intending to. Are you going to buy it again, Fern? Because you did with PC
with
World.
Probably not.
It's too expensive, I think.
It is too expensive at this point.
It's not as good as World either. But
like I said,
yeah,
I'm sort of hanging out for Pokemon Arceus, so I'll probably spend my AAA budget for this month on that.
Does that allow you to kill huge Pokemon with great swords?
Yes to the big Pokemon, no to the great swords.
Yeah. Disappointing.
Incidentally, I just saw my brother fire up Wokemon, so I might need to go and murder him now.
The whole porting thing seems to be ridiculously hit or miss these days, so I'm sort of curious as to see whether they managed to pull it off or not.
Yeah, to be fair, they were making a big song and dance about bringing the graphical fidelity up while and taking advantage of it being on the PC, so hopefully that's happened.
That should not be hard to do because, they made those skeletons for World scalable, right? So that they could be used on multiple platforms and multiple different games.
For exactly this reason, yes.
That was on purpose. So I wonder whether they drew maximum resolution textures as well.
I think they did because they've been showing the previous screenshots with those textures.
So because I think that when they made Rise, I think that they probably made something world quality and then tuned the tech requirements down for the Switch so that they had made all of that stuff future-proofed for when they wanted to use it again.
Yep.
So it looks like the port's actually really good. only the people with ultra wide monitors are complaining that it doesn't that it's having a few issues there.
Yeah, but
and
that's because
everybody
you
else
bought an
seems to think
ultra wide monitor, so it's on you.
Yeah, everybody else seems to think it's a pretty good port,
Ah, that's what we're after.
and it can run at 60 frames a second.
It's also what we're after. So, all right, good job, Capcom. You didn't screw it up.
They're getting better at their PC ports. Ever since Devil May Cry 5, their PC ports have been much better than they used to be.
Something of Monster Hunter World scale that's on a next-gen console might be enough to sell one to me.
If they could
Might be.
do Monster Hunter World again for the PS5, then I would consider. Well, it'd have to be Monster Hunter 6, Generation 6 at that point, but yeah, it'd have to be that. But as the way things stand, it'll be on the PS5, but it'll also be on the PS4 and later on down the line on the PC. So
Yeah, the PS5 thing just doesn't seem like a great value proposition. I just don't understand. I don't know what would make it a good value proposition. I'm taking for granted the fact that a Fate game is not enough to sell it to most people. But yeah, it's a very, very expensive piece of kit that's almost impossible to obtain, and you don't get anything out of successfully doing so.
you get one unique game. Also, you have to rebuy all your PS4 library. All right. With that, let us pack up, shall we?
Alrighty. Yeah. Closing comments. I ain't got a good email topic of the week for y'all this week because it's been such a week.
It's kind of been a blah week. But, yeah, hopefully next week something will happen. Maybe I'll sit down and watch some anime. I don't know. But the whole season's just very blah.
I hope my workload lets up a little bit. I feel like I've been going nonstop with very little time to come up for air aside from today.
Yeah.
It might literally freeze to a halt today because we're getting freezing rain. So we all know what the cold weather does to us in Georgia. It's
It makes you run around like your hair's on fire for some reason.
Oh my god, it's 0.5 millimeter on the snow coverage on the road. We're all gonna die.
Yeah, if you run to a Georgian, just cast Bufu on them and you get a free press turn.
Not even Bufu died, just Bufu.
The thing is that it's like COVID. There's not even precedent for the fact that you should panic. Like it's not like you all endured some terrible ice age in the past and it scarred your cultural memory.
It's just a scary well, it's a bit different than the Koof, because we can clearly see the effects of the ice and the damage it has, just we don't know what to do with it. And our infrastructure isn't built to handle it at all.
I will gladly swap you your ice and snow for melting face heat.
Oh, we can handle heat.
It's the flies. The flies are the part of Australia that I have difficulty with. Because there are so many. So many.
Mm.
It's like Florida out there.
We have enough of a mosquito problem. You can keep your flies.
Thankfully, I don't have enough water around here to have too much of a mosquito problem.
Yeah, that's the benefit of Australian heat is that it gets too hot for standing water.
Yeah, it just boils.
If you are unfortunate enough to live on the coast, you can sometimes manage to get both.
Townsville actually has a strain of a malarial disease named after it.
I remember I stayed in a little locale in inland New South Wales called Dungog once, because the Australians have no naming sense.
They really don't.
And Aborigines don't either. But there it was sort of like it was Australian. There was a lot of Australian bush around, and lots of sort of like lagoons. I guess you call them billabongs or something awful.
Billabongs are something specific.
I don't know Australian, but yeah, they basically they had lots of water holes of various places where people would go and swim.
Yep.
But it was also 47 degrees every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very, very, very hot, and the air was laden with moisture, and there were watering holes everywhere. So the air was thick with mosquitoes and thick with flies, and surprisingly, or not surprisingly, if you live in Australia, thick with lizards and snakes.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. We don't mind those so much.
If you looked out the window at the field, you'd just see snakes crawling through the grass.
Yeah.
There's just that many of them around. Like, what are they doing Where are they going? How can they survive this heat? They're cold-blooded, aren't they?
That's how they survive. Yeah, it's Australia.
Australia.
All right, folks. I think we're done. We'll see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.